bet that I was not going to remember.
Oh,
cat! Hello, Wise.
Hello, cat. That cat does not want to talk to me.
That cat doesn't seem like they want to talk to anybody.
Cat.
Audacity is a thing that I need to do.
It is. How was your stream?
Yes.
Except for that last game.
It was okay. It was up and down. Quest Priest is not the way.
Don't think so.
I ran into I just people had stopped playing Shaman, or at least I didn't see nearly enough Shamans to justify it.
It's
and even the ones that I did, it wasn't going well.
I mean, the saturation of Shaman boredom, I think, is somewhat significant. That like,
yeah,
it is dramatically underplayed and also like good. I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine if they. I mean, I would imagine that they might still do something about it, but
well, they're gonna. Yes, they're going to, but like we don't need a server side nerf.
Oh, that is okay.
Okay. You got your stuff? Oh, you have audio problems 5 minutes before the podcast face.
Yeah. Hold on. Oh my god.
How y'all doing in chat? How you doing?
Alright, I'm just like getting situated. And I also forgot.
I just have to disappoint my cat a dozen times a day because every time I go in the kitchen, she's like, oh, "You're here to feed me, right?"
Cats feast off of your disappointment to get what they want. Don't believe her lies. That's what cats do.
Yes, I've been replaced by a cat. Yes, that is exactly what's happening right now.
Not replaced, supplemented.
Supplemented. Okay, I like that. What am I doing? Okay. So I have Audacity open. I should close Hearthstone so it stops like jabbering at me. There we go. That's
Jabbers
better.
at you?
Well, you know, it's got like the little like people in the background when you have it open.
Oh.
It does.
I turn the sound off.
You do.
I mean, I'm not a monster, so you know, it's you know, they paid a lot of people a lot of good money to record those voice lines, and I'm going to listen to them.
Oh god, that was not muted. Ow.
Was that Hearthstone? Did you just try and launch Hearthstone?
No, Twitch.
No, she has the sound off. We just went over this.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure if she unmuted to try and prove a point, and then was surprised by the volume.
I should unmute sometimes to like imitate the voice lines, but
What are you doing? Oh, like your
For
voice
practice.
acting practice? Okay.
look, I have many different pies. Plans within plans.
I prefer apple, sometimes cherry. Now I want pie.
Not going to be as many.
Strawberry rhubarb is OP.
Even McDonald's pie would be okay.
Well, hello.
I mess with that.
Are you lonely?
I mess with McDonald's pies. Is Kat back?
She is.
I mean, you have McDonald's in the city. I mean, you just have other things that you can do that's better than that.
The McDonald's is the closest restaurant to my house.
Okay.
It is 2 stoplights that way. Well, Steve, I'm doing a
there?
podcast right now. I can't go to McDonald's. I have to.
Well, no, you said you miss them. I thought you said.
No, I mess with them.
Oh, mess with. I thought you said you miss them, and I'm like.
See, well, this would be if I was able to use the uncensored term. This would have been a lot clearer, a lot more quickly.
Okay.
If I were on the Angry Chicken,
at our decorum, like.
If I were on the Angry Chicken, I would say I cluck with them.
Okay.
I cluck with McDonald's apple pies.
I get where I'm picking up what you're
If
putting
you were
down.
on Blizzlet, you would just say it.
Yes.
If I was on Blizzlet, that would place me in third place for most tame co-host. This week was exceptional, by the way. I don't know, you
Oh
finished
my
listening?
goodness.
It
Oh
was-
yeah.
I was in chat for that one because I knew about the Blizzlet visual goof that was coming at the end. Yeah.
But it's a podcast. How are they doing a visual goof?
That's the joke, Steve.
Okay, got it. I get jokes.
Wait, hold on. I need wife support. I'm gonna have her bring me the Blizzlet visual goof.
Oh,
because
did you see that they have Kirby shirts on the Yeti today?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's I my wife is basically a Kirby newsletter. Like
Okay. I didn't know if I needed to tell you that or if you just like that was just known. Like when I tried
to
to
have a gaming
what is
partner.
that?
can you read it?
Oh no!
Can you read that?
Oh my god. took me
They're
a second.
delicious.
I'm sure it
gonna hold-
is.
Yeah. It's gonna make sure everybody can see. It means cookie from the Assay region, from the Ast region. I don't know if it's a silent E.
I mean, otherwise it's just
Hi.
sparkling butthole.
Uh, she says there's something wrong with me.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with her.
The thing that I'm most excited about is that our order got here on her birthday. So, you know. A little birthday kook. This is
See,
all.
I just went to a place called Chocolate Emporium, which is a kosher chocolatier, and so
Yeah.
that's where I went to get Rachel her Valentine's chocolate.
That
All
reminds me,
lactose
lactose free, of
free.
course.
we have all dressed
Probably
strips
not.
from Canada in the closet. That's something that I should get into at some point.
All right, I should tweet that we're going live.
Yes.
Now that that is done, appropriate time to send the tweet.
And so that's just a little treat for the early arrivers.
See, if we recorded this, we could have a whole After Dark feed.
You can pull off the VOD if you want to, Edel, but you don't want to.
No.
No, I don't.
There's a time and place for everything, Steve, and it's called Blizzlet.
I thought it was called Duels.
You can play duels while you listen to Blizzlet.
That's fair. Yes.
Okay.
This is going to be a weird show, isn't it?
Have you realized, looking
No,
at the
it'll be
news, that this
fine.
episode is entirely awful things again?
I know. And we're
Except for
loopy,
the
so
Sarad
that's,
portrait.
you know,
It's fine. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're streaming. I'm gonna press the record button.
Okay,
That's what
I'm
doing right now.
pressing the button.
All right. My recording seems to be functioning, which is good.
We're recording.
Cool. All right. Ceremonial claps. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 383 of Coin Conceit, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Friday, February 17th in the evening. From Gadgetan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergon, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked.
Hi.
And from where you are, listener, we have you. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you having you here. All of our patrons, you're wonderful, especially our newest patron, AC Transit. Thank you so much for your support of the show. Reviewers, you're great too. Thanks for helping other people find the show. And live Twitch chat, thanks for being here and sharing special moments with us. Like seeing Edelweiss's cat and talking about my newest cookies and that sort of thing. So, Life and Ladder. Steve, how was your stream?
It was good. I played Quest Priest until I didn't, and I had gotten a tip that Quest Priest was going up the meta chart, and I think I caught it on the way down. Because most of the meta for the last couple of days has been Evolve Shaman, and it turns out that Shadowward Ruins is a very good card against that deck. Except that, yeah, I didn't see very many Shamans. I saw a lot of Death Knights, and I saw Ramp Druid twice with Astalor for some reason. That I was probably the only one that they beat because I was playing Quest Priest. So, you know, congrats. It was a weird deck too. They were playing Pathfinder, and what's the other one that like discounts a choose
There's
1 by 2?
There's Pride Seeker, which discounts a choose 1 by 2, and there's Raid Negotiator, which discovers a choose 1 and combines them.
Yeah, no, they were playing Pride Seeker. They were also playing Pandas to bounce the Pathfinders. And yeah, the face you're making right now is the face that was on that I was wearing the entire game, because it was weird.
So
but
I
they
have
had
lost
Astalor, so it didn't
in
matter.
THL. I got metagame pretty hard by Dankus Dad was my opponent that week. Played a Beetlemancy Druid, which I
Oh.
could not. I was playing quad aggro. I had no chance against Raid Negotiator into Beetlemancy. No
Wow.
chance. Got demolished.
So he beetled
So-
you pretty good then, is what you're saying.
Yes, it was extraordinarily effective.
Yeah.
So I mean, because if you take all the armor cards and put them into a druid deck, like you can beat minion decks if you want to. You're probably not going to beat anything that tries to go long. You're not going to beat a Phylactery Warlock ever. But I don't think that was the intent here. I think the intent was to gain a bunch of armor, and they did that against you, I guess.
Yeah. But so I tried some Quest Priest. It was okay, but it didn't work great. I ended up just going back to playing Evolve Shaman. I played the broken stuff and, you know, played against a big Warlock. They played their discard a minion, a discard an undead minion on the board and left it there. So I just primordial waved it and they conceded. You know, I mean, the deck's not broken, and I've noticed a lot more control decks just trying to beat it, which makes it a little bit harder.
I'm going to push back on the first part of the not broken.
Oh no, it's broken. Sorry, it's a little bit less broken now that they fixed the bug, but it's beatable. It's not invincible, is what I meant to say.
Yeah,
But it's
sure.
broken. It's broken.
It is.
But it's
It is
not,
meta
it's not
warping.
invincible. It's not invincible. I managed to find ways to lose with it, and I've played. I mean, I did have on my stream before the patch dropped. I went from like 1480 to inside top 500 with Unholy DK over the course of a 3-hour stream.
Mhm.
So I've been a little bit between like being exhausted after work and then being at ranks that I'm not normally playing at. I've been playing a little bit more deliberately than I normally would be right after new cards come out. And I didn't feel like getting tilted off the face of the earth because I got destroyed by some combo that I couldn't see coming. So that's why I've been kind of saving a lot of my playing for today. But I think the meta's okay. I think it's definitely got some rough edges, as they often do after a mini set. But it's a little bit better than I thought it was a couple days ago. I guess I'll say that much.
Yes, though I will say I think a part of that is kind of a global lack of enthusiasm for the best deck.
Yeah.
Because the best deck is Evolve Shaman, and also, like, I've heard a lot of comments from people that were even playing it before the mini set that were like, it isn't as fun anymore now that it's just so scammy. And I've absolutely had that feeling before. I mean, we talked about that before when Miracle Rogue with Draco was the best deck. I was like, I get it, but I want to work harder than this, and I want to do something that feels less stupid. And that's kind of the vibe that I've felt around Evolve Shaman right now. Not that anyone that's listening to this, if you are playing it and you are enjoying it, I want you to keep doing that. Keep doing that. Keep having a good time. And recognize that the dialogue around this particular archetype is perhaps more emotionally charged than most archetypes in Hearthstone's history, because there have been so many times where Evolved Shaman has come out of nowhere and then dominated people in the early game. But if you enjoy it, embrace it, and because you also have to deal with making peace with the fact that you probably have somewhere between 9 and 12 days with it left, and then they're going to do something to make it worse. But if you're enjoying it, please enjoy it. And the play rate is lower than I'd expect it to be. If I look at the last 1 day in Legend, it is 17% on HS Replay. Last 3 days, it's 13%. So for the number one win rate deck by a large margin, that is underplayed. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Please don't take this as me heating you to play it. You will also note, by the way, keen-eyed listener, that the number 2 and number 3 decks are Death Knight and Death Knight. I hope that they also maybe rein in the location a little bit when they pull Evolved Shaman back, because that location is ridiculous. But we'll talk about that later down the road. But I think I'm in the same spot as you, Steve. Like, you can tell how this meta will be good, and if you don't run into the outliers, then it is good. And there aren't that many outliers. It's Goldshire Knoll and Construct Quarter are the 2 cards that are maybe giving me the most grief right now. But it's still going to be a powerful format, even if and when they change those, which I'm pretty sure will be soon, and I'm pretty sure both will get changed. But this is still a strong format. Like, this is a format where I faced against a rogue, turn 4 Dragonfire Amulet, turn 5 Miracle Growth, and I killed them that turn.
Good.
Right? This is also... I've been playing Shadow Priest. I killed them that turn. Because my Mind Eater took their Sketchy Stranger, and the other half of the Mind Eater, which was Reborn, took their Shadow Step, and I found a Motion Denied, and their Miracle Growth with them at 5 actually put them to -1. It was very enjoyable. And Shadow Step, by the way, triggered my Needle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sure does.
It's a Shadow spell. Shadow Step. And also, the first game I played with the deck, I think I sent you the replay. My opponent's line was as follows. Brand turn 3, couldn't kill it. The Widowbloom Seedsman, turn 4. Drew 2 cards, gained 2 mana. Then Scale of Onyxia, Moonlight Guidance, Moonlight Guidance in there. Scale of Onyxia, Denathrius for 17. Then they died the next turn.
Wait, how? What?
Damage. I played allies for Reborn for 3 different minions, and I took a bunch of stuff, and then I killed them. So all of their scales into Denathrius for 17 was not enough. I killed them the next turn. So
you tip the scales.
Yes. Thank you for that. So, like, I think this format has some interesting stuff going on. I think the mini set did add some value. It just also gave all the tools in the world to a deck that didn't need them, and managed to make the environment a little warped. Not to mention that Construct Quarter in DK is waiting right behind it as a way to keep decks from getting on the board. But it's really close to being really compelling. And we have our Dexplanations has what do I do? What do I do against the thing? And what decks can I play? And we have 14 decks compiled across almost all classes, some better than others. Specifically, at least one that's total bait, but I want you all to play it anyways. But there are a lot of options, and I think the mini set actually added value to quite a few classes, and also let a lot of dreams take flight. There are a lot of Thaddeus decks, a lot of Rivendare decks. There are a lot of interesting things going on. I've been enjoying my time with it, but there are also other times when I say, you know what, I bet this format will be better in a week, and I play a little less. I've got some other stuff going on too, like Ant-Man open today. Well, last night, really. It was my wife's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, honey. And so, like, I haven't been quite as engaged with playing a bunch because I also know that changes are coming soon. But when I have played, I've enjoyed it. But, then I have a game like I did against Inzi where I had double Knoll on my opener, but he had the coin and schooling, and so he got a Thaddeus on turn 2, and my double Knoll had to trade with it. And I lost. Because I had to trade with a Thaddeus on turn 4.
It's Barnes, right? I mean, that's kind of the reaction. I think that a lot of the problem with the play pattern of Evolve Shaman is that even if the games aren't actually non-games, they feel like non-games when your opponent gets the null opener, and that's hard to stomach when you're trying to climb and then you just get knocked back because your opponent happened to draw the broken opening, and that's kind of difficult to run into more than a few times, especially like Wednesday, Thursday, when that was most of the ladder, right? So I think that I've seen quite a bit of salt on Twitter. I had tweeted, this was after we recorded last, but when they first showed Blazing Transmutation, I tweeted and said, like, I don't think that that's what Standard needs right now, is a way to make Evolve Shaman more consistent. The deck was still fine, but it had fail states, and making that more consistent didn't seem to be the kind of thing we needed, at least until Null rotated. I understand that a lot of people, there's definitely a lot of people who enjoy that style of deck, and it's fine. It's fine to visit, but it's not a place I want to live in. And it's not a lot of fun to play, especially mirrors, for a long period of time. Like, mirrors there's strategy to them. There are decisions to make, but sometimes it just comes down to, did I get to evolve the better thing earlier? And that doesn't feel good, in general, when you're trying to have skill expression. Even if there is skill involved, it feels like a lot like that skill can be negated, whether or not it actually is or not.
And Blazing is just like the best evolve card for the situation of play null, get a 10 drop, because the discover makes it so much more likely that you get something ridiculous. At least with the prior evolves we've been dealing with, the location or convincing disguise, it is some of the time going to hit null again, or is going to hit, something that doesn't have rush. It's kind of crazy that in a lot of cases Gigantotem is a low roll because it's just an 8/8.
Yeah, or Sea Giant.
Or Sea Giant. And yeah, it didn't help that there was the bug where it was getting Neptulon for a bit towards the beginning.
Not just Neptulon, by the way. This
Oh?
bug is way funnier than I realized, and I gotta
no.
thank Wyra for figuring this out. So, all right, we're jumping. Do we want to just go into the news? Do we want to talk about this in the news? You haven't shared Life and Ladder yet.
Edel
You gotta do
Edel
Life
hasn't
and Ladder.
got his chance.
Okay,
Yeah.
that bug is
Yeah.
funnier. This is a tease. This is a teaser line. You won't believe this bug after the break. But now let's check in with Edelweiss for her Life and Ladder.
And tonight's weather.
What?
I don't know.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I have been enjoying this patch considerably in spite of the Evolve Shaman Scourge. Mostly because, as you say, Wicked, I have not seen as much of that deck as I had anticipated. Now, granted, I have not been jamming as much as usual ladder-wise, so I'm still on my climb to Legend. And there's a lot of variety. I am baffled by the 35 card Thief Rogues I encounter, for example.
40 cards, 35 life.
Sorry, yeah, 35 life. Yeah, the Renathal Thief Rogues, I'm just like, what are you doing? And yeah, I've seen some 40 card Blood Decays as well. I'm very confused by some people's choices, but I have been playing my darling deck, which is Rainbow DK. And we will perhaps get into that more later on, but rather than building it as a scuffed version of Unholy, which I feel like the previous iteration was, I just went full Flame Tongue Kavu on this deck list. For any Magic players out there, pretty much everything like kills something and makes something. I've got Plague Strike in there. I've got, of course, our good friend, the No Muncher. We get to run the Cindergosa. You've got Patchwork. I even run like a pair of the Consecrate draw card, just because sometimes you need that clear and it draws. So like the deck has a fair amount of card draw just from like that and Chill Fallen Barrens and 2 copies of Defrost. And it just has been feeling so good because I very rarely run out of cards, or even if I am, they're just so incredibly off board that it doesn't matter. I get to run Obliterate for the Evolved Shamans. I get to run Blightfang for anything that makes, decent sized boards. Get to run Thessarian. Like, you just get all of the power, 1 rune legendaries. And Sylvanas is very good right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was running that even in Unholy, and it was carrying.
I mean, there's some matchups where someone's doing the Rivendare thing, and you're like, okay, let me just take that. Or against Warlocks as well. I feel like that's one that's potentially a tough matchup if you don't get something like the Sylvanas, but it's just felt so incredible. I still get to run Bran, Astalor, and I even top off at Alexstrasza the Lifebinder, which has definitely won me several games because no one thinks about it anymore. But it's still 8 damage burst. Or if I'm on 10, I can do Alexstrasza plus a Noxious Cadaver for a full 10 damage.
You
The
got
full
enough card
Pyroblast.
draw. You could probably do the Bone Lord combo in that too, just for fun.
No, absolutely not. That is, it's not a combo deck.
But it could be.
No, it would be so much worse.
All right, we can't do Magical Christmas Land 2 weeks in a row. We can't do this. All right. This is a news-heavy episode. Most of it not great news. But I want to start by saying all of us have found ways to have fun in this meta, and I firmly believe that after balance changes, it will be particularly good. I'm very excited to see what this format looks like after balance changes, and even before, there are ways to find the fun. Okay, now let's go talk about a bunch of awful stuff.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right, so the first thing isn't exactly awful, right? The first thing here is the patch, the 25.4 patch. Now, this patch, it has a lot. There's a lot in here. So we'll start by seeing if my OBS can actually remember the window settings. Okay, sure. So the mini set came out. Last week we had like 6 cards and we talked about them for 90 minutes. We're not going to talk about the rest of the mini set. It's out already. It's on ladder. You already know about it. It's fine. But it's Return to Naxxramas. You got all the cards, 38 cards. There are some BG's updates. Like, you can now see how many cards your opponent has in your hand during combat, or has in their hand. There are some heroes that were now tied to tribe pools. So Drekthar, Greybow, N'Zoth, Onyxia, the Jailer, and Vandar. If you don't have Beast, Demons, Mechs, or Undead, if you don't have any of those, it removes all these because they're very token-based heroes. So they tied them to minion types and said, you have to have at least one of these to ever have this hero offered, because otherwise they're just useless. There are some text updates. There's a new hero, Terran Gorefiend. It's a 0 gold to choose a friendly minion. At the start of combat, you destroy it, and when you have the space, you resummon an exact copy, which I think is a clever little mechanic. I think that's fun. So it's kind of like Spellcraft in that it waits a minute until you have the room. So, pretty cool. So, he will be offered in every lobby for 2 weeks, except during that initial period and going forward, if there are no undead and no beasts, you don't see him. He is not offered because he's meant to synergize with those two, with undead or beasts.
Yeah, death rattles, effectively.
Yeah, death rattles that make stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. I haven't played with them, but seems fun. Mercenaries, they got the Mythic Boss Rush, they got the factions, they got all the stuff. Jandis, Godfrey, Lillian Voss, Arthas, he's a good boy. Mr. Bigglesworth Cat, and Kel'Thuzad are all added to the game. There's a new arena leaderboard added to the leaderboards page. It's live. You have to have at least 30 runs. It's a modified average wins per run for an entire season, so it continually dynamically updates. Pretty interesting. The first people on there were the ones that had done 30 runs that ended very quickly. Their averages were fairly low. I imagine that at the end of the season, we will have some very high numbers, but the first numbers were under 1 win per run because it's the fastest you could possibly do 30 runs. So,
But good for those people, right? They finally got to see themselves on the leaderboard. So congratulations.
they knew what they were signing up for. They just clearly enjoy Arena. Good for them. Good for them. Tabayrak in chat asked, duels leaderboards when? Atesh, that's a great question. Why don't you ask Brad? Go ask Brad. Tell him I said hi. Also, by the way, the Arena season lines up with standard sets now. Core, Baron, Stormwind, Alterac, Sunken City, Nathria, Lich King, including Return to Nax, Path of Arthas. I had heard a lot from Arena players that the old cards versus the new cards just really stuck out like a sore thumb. You could really feel the difference, and the old cards were just so useless. And that things feel more dynamic and balanced now, and that Discover is no longer a huge problem. They still adjusted some stuff. They will need to continue to do that, but at least the cards feel more even across the board. As for duels, well, they added Nax cards. There's the Corgi Cup. Yes, I said it. There's the Corgi Cup. Okay. So, they made up a sport called Corgle, where you have to carry a Corgi like a little football to the other end zone. And the Corgi has a little helmet because you have to make sure they're okay. And you can buy the skins for this. Now, I will point out, the first skin offered, which I believe was Mograine, none of the voice lines referenced the Corgi, so please be aware of that before you buy it, if you choose to buy it or not buy it. However, there's a little Corgi in the art and he's sticking his little tongue out. It's pretty cute. There will be
Does seem like a
apparently...
doggone shame.
Yes. There will be more Corgi-themed heroes and emotes coming, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, come on, Blizzard, throw us a bone. Get us some voice lines in there that have to do with Corgis. Yeah. Also, to quote the patch notes, celebrate the Corgi Cup with special Corgi-themed Hearthstone skins and Battlegrounds emotes. Why? Why not? That's a good point. It's a good point. All right. Diamonds.
I feel we have Cora to blame for this.
I already tagged her. She says it wasn't her, but it was B.
Yeah,
It was
sure.
B.
Okay, we'll go with that. Sure.
Yeah. So they made some old diamonds. Reno, Patches, and Zola all have diamond. You have to get the Legendary 5 achievement for the respective original sets, which means you have to own all the legendaries. The diamond versions of Reno and Zola are unlocked in core when they are unlocked through their achievements. So if you own the old version, you can play the diamond one in standard. So if you want to play a diamond Zola, that's the best one. No, it does not give diamond copies of things you target, unless the thing you target has a diamond version. Then I don't know how that works. Good luck. Like maybe someone can try and do that with a Samuro or Finley or something, just see what happens. And Reno, Patches, and Zola. So they're all available. There is also a Diamond Zephyrus in the client, but not obtainable yet. It was invisible by mistake, but if you wish hard enough, he'll be in a future patch. Though, I stand by the idea that when you try and put him in a deck, it should offer you a Temple Enforcer or a Tyrion instead to put in the deck.
What?
What?
Do you not remember playing with Zephyrus?
I mean, I blocked
He
it
would
out of my memory.
always get those cards. He would always show those cards. I don't know about you, Will. I saw Temple Enforcer an awful lot off of Zephyrus. Oh, I guess, yeah, Nomad in chat has it right. The text of Zola says golden copy, so it won't give a diamond because diamond's not golden.
Yeah.
The golden part is actually relevant. Okay. We also have a bunch of bug fixes. Expanded audio settings, so now you can have more granular audio control. The tutorial is now replayable if you wanted to do that for some reason. Corpses are now available for all classes. So they are tracked in the background, and if you end up with a corpse card in your hand at any time, the corpse counter just becomes visible, but you accumulate corpses throughout the entire game. So if you Theatar, Mind Eater, or otherwise steal a corpse using card, Corpse Spender, then your counter just appears. So this is a big buff for like Minder, the Priest 2-drop that steals a card from your opponent. It's just like, it gets you better cards on average now. Pretty cool. Several minions have had their minion types adjusted to better match what they are. Okay. This is a big deal. This is big. Like, actually quite significant. So, there is a large list of minions that have been adjusted. Like, a substantial list. Multiple pages. Let's bring this up. Okay. Bulldozer, Mulch Muncher, Damage Stegatron, Mechanical Whelp, Mechanical Dragon, Mech Bear, Cat, Carousel, Griffin, Coppertail, Imposter, Efficient, Octobot, Gorillabot A3, Mecha Shark, Metaltooth, Leaper, Snip Snap, Spider Bomb, Ursatron, Anodized, Robocub, Explosive, Sheep, K9otron, Scorpomatic, Vicious, Scrap Hound, Click Clocker, Mecha Rude, Joeybot, Pogo Hopper, Robosaur, Homing Chicken, Mecha Fish, Mechanical Dragonling, Kargath Prime, Conrathod Prime, Spirit of Vengeance, Risen Skeleton, Failed Student, Lost Soul, Spirit Wolf, Sunken Pirate, Guardian Spirit, Dragon Spirit, Nerubian Unraveler. The reasons for these changes are either mechs are now more open for dual typing, or we missed updating this card's typing in the last patch. So they had this kind of philosophical adjustment on what qualifies as something you can dual type with a mech. And it's kind of weird, I think, where they landed, is that if it's a mech that looks like a different thing, it's both now. So like K9otron and Click Clocker are both mech beasts.
Yeah, I've never really thought of those as beasts. They were just like mechs that were shaped like beasts. I never thought they were like RoboCop, you know?
Who's both
I'm
a robot
about
and
it.
a cop.
I really like this kind of thing because it often opens up interesting deck building decisions, particularly with targeted draw kind of stuff. I don't know how much of that there will be or not, but like in the Paladin, you get this really cool thing going on because of the dual types, where you can draw both your elementals or your light whatevers,
Light rays.
because light rays, because they're elementals and beasts, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I know it's not to do with these ones you mentioned, but I just enjoy sort of the more things that have the dual type. So yeah, all for
it's
it.
kind of part of it, right? So like the reasoning here, Leo actually tweeted about it. In 25.0, they had a bunch of dual type minions. They didn't make cards like Spider Bomb or Ursatron or whatever mech beasts. They made them just mechs. They're mechs made in the image of beasts, not real beasts. But Light Ray was a specific example. And Arcanosaur. Those were made elemental beasts, even though they're just elementals that take the shape of a beast. It's the same thing. They aren't, air quotes, real beasts, right? They aren't like wild animals. They are elementals that take the shape of something else. So, if that's the case for elementals, why not the case for mechs? I follow the logic. It ends up in kind of a weird spot. I feel like that they occupy a different fantasy space in my head. But like, I don't know. I kind of get it. And if you're going to make one thing that's shaped like a beast into a beast, then why not the other thing? So, they're trying it out. And I will say this does have a competitive impact on Click Clocker and K9otron, because you can't run them with the Jar and Saber anymore because they're
Right.
beasts, and so it pulls the 2/3 out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, there is a card that it does make better that I hope we see more, called Shadehound, which needs you to infuse 3 beasts. You now can play Click Clocker and K9, and those are beasts that now infuse Shadehound, for example. So I'm hopeful this actually expands some options while making Beast Hunter less good. And not that anyone is interested in playing Beast Hunter anymore anyway, but if you do,
Even
you have
when
to
they
build a
did,
little
like
different.
the K9otron had fallen out of that list for the most part anyway.
I think Click Clocker had, but not K9otron.
K9, I feel like, was in most Beast Hunters just because you can go get peasants or whatever, or Batty Guess.
The
But
one that excites me the most is the Spirit Wolf change, because for the longest time it felt terrible that playing, I don't even remember the name of the card, but 3-mana shaman card that makes
Feral
a
Spirits.
couple of Spirit Wolves, Feral Spirits, you wouldn't be able to play it or it wouldn't feel good in certain situations because it didn't have a type, and now it has 2 types, which is fantastic, particularly if you're trying to do something like an undead shaman. I think that could be pretty impactful. It's like it's not a big thing, but it's just one of those where it's like if you were a deck that had Amalgam, the more things that you can target with Amalgam, the better, even if it's not your main tribe. So being able to have those minions, and it's both from that and from Prescience, I think they're also
And
Spirit Wolves.
maybe you wouldn't have run Nerubian Vizier, and now you would.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah, Nerubian Vizier probably the biggest example. So there are a bunch of other bug fixes. I think that we covered most of the important ones. They fixed some bugs with counter spells, like if Blademaster Arcana and Objection are both on minion, they won't both trigger now. Only one of them does, and the other one is saved. Lady Athena no longer counts armor as though it were health, so it correctly calculates what she's supposed to attack. Scribbling Stenographer is no longer discounted if the card played is countered. That sort of thing. So
Double Cross not triggering anymore when your hand is full is actually kind of a big deal.
yeah, it's nice.
Because, I mean, that's something that does get played in Thief Rogue, and that's something that, even if you're not playing with that card, it's good to know if you're playing against it, because you might expect that they're going to get burned, and they're not going to.
Yeah. There's also an undocumented change here that is actually quite important for wild players. Skulking Geist has been corrected, adjusted, whatever you want to call it. It now hits cards that cost 1, not cards that were printed at 1. So if costs change, like with Celestial Alignment, it deletes everything. So, because the way Skulking Geist used to work, listener, you may not know this. This is an old card now. It's a 6-mana 4/6 that eats all 1-mana spells from both players' hands and decks. It just destroys them all, right? So it was made a long time ago, and it was made with the purpose of being a tech card you put in your deck when you don't want to deal with Jade Idol. That was the purpose that card existed. There were a lot less cost modifiers back then. And the way this text should have always worked, if it is consistent with other effects of this type, is to eat things that cost 1 mana right now. But the way it always worked was that it looked at cards that cost 1 mana when you put them in your deck. So if you discounted costs or raised costs, it didn't matter. Those Jade Idols were always going away, and other cards that were moved to 1 mana never got touched. That's basically never how this effect should work. The only exception I can think of that is actually really intentional by the team is Grey Sage Parrot, so that you can't make a Potion of Illusion cost 5 and then cast it infinitely. That was pretty specifically changed. But Skulking Geist has been changed after like 5 years of working the way it did before, so just be aware if you're a wild player. It's different now and a much more effective counter to Celestial Alignment than it used to be. Okay, well, that was the first patch, 25.4. We have some known issues. Come on. So we have some known issues here. So, test subject. Okay. Test subject was temporarily banned in Wild. For those that don't know, alright, there are some cards that you need to know. First of all, test subject. It's a 1-mana 0/2. Death Rattle. Add all spells that were cast on this minion back to your hand when this dies. Radiant Elemental, you all know that one. It's in core right now. Embalming Ritual. It's a Saviors of Uldum card that says target minion gains reborn. And Mindseer, a new card. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, deal 3 damage to your opponent. You would play these 4 cards. You would have Radiant Elemental. You would play Test Subject. You would give it reborn, and then you would kill it with Mindseer. Your opponent takes 3. You get back a 0/1 Test Subject, a 0-mana Embalming Ritual, and a 0-mana Mindseer. And you keep doing that until your opponent is dead. The biggest limiting factor is having these 4 cards and the rope. And the rope is particularly important because this is a combo you can play on turn 2 on the coin, and the rope is half the time, 35 seconds instead of 70, which was the biggest limiting factor on killing on turn 2. aside from, actually having the cards. So, they temporarily banned Test Subject the second the mini set went live, and they said they're going to rework it to make sure this combo doesn't exist. A very pleasant surprise, I think, for them to proactively do this. Really, really nice. We'll see where the combo lands or whatever. I have found a very strange way. People have told me about this. I haven't seen it. There is a way to actually still do it, but it takes much longer and is much less reliable. It's really stupid. Edelweiss, you're going to like this. You're going to like this a lot. Okay. Do either of you remember the card Primal Fin Champion? The Paladin,
the Paladin card.
The Paladin one. The 2-mana 1/2 Murloc that when it dies, it gives you back all the spells you cast on it. So, you play Fish Flinger to generate random Murlocs, which is not class limited.
Oh my god.
And you hope to hit a Primal Fin Champion. This is not competitive, but boy, it's just fun.
But it costs 2.
That's your problem with this?
Well, you can't do it all in one turn, right?
Well,
You have
just
to
have to get the
generate
Primal
the
Fin
thing
Champion
off
in
the
hand.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to roll a Primal Fin Champion to start with, which is the pool of Murlocs is not small in Wild.
I know. But even if you do, like, every time you want to do it, you would have to replay the Primal Fin Champion, no?
No, it's Reborn.
No, it's got Reborn, so you still give it Reborn.
It comes back in play.
and then it comes back. You give it
right.
Reborn again, so it just keeps. You only have to play the minion once,
Sure.
right? Because then it gets Reborn, and then you just play the card that gives it Reborn, and then you kill it, and
my
then it comes
God.
back. Yeah.
That's
This
not
is
the
just
limiting
not
factor
how I
here.
engage with the game.
The limiting factor is how many Fish Flingers do you have to play? As I would like to point out, there are very different levels of competitive impact here between the two different combos, but it is possible. And you know what? Blizzard developers is what I say. Let them have it. Let them keep this. If they even have it to begin with. Okay.
If you want to fling fish all day to get this combo to happen, God bless. You know.
Yes.
Test Subject, I don't know. I think it's a cool card, and there's some stuff people like to do with it, so hopefully they don't kill that card entirely. But yeah, this combo definitely seems not very Hearthstone for Wild.
And
I
as
mean,
DCU is saying in chat, a very important point, it does also give your opponent a Murloc, so it's a big risk in the mirror.
Sure. Yeah.
If you're flinging fish in the mirror, you got bigger problems.
I mean, if Seer only hit opposing minions, that also gets rid of the combo.
Yeah. It is.
Stop nerfing standard priest cards for wild stupid combos, please. I'm still bitter about Hysteria the first time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, so there are a few other known issues. Mercenaries Diamond animations aren't shown correctly. From the other side's art is not shown correctly. Diamond's F we already talked about. There was an issue with Mercenaries pack openings crashing the client, but they have fixed that. That was fixed the same day. They disabled the pack opening for a little bit. There was an item in the pack that wasn't supposed to be in there that was crashing the game. They fixed it. They took it out, whatever. They also compensated people that attempted to open packs. The Hearthstone tutorial. Okay. There was a bug. Well, there was an unintended interaction where if you did the tutorial again and you hadn't done the new player quest line, you got given the new player quest line. So you got free packs. However, at the 4th step of the new player quest line, which you weren't supposed to have, your account would kind of go into stasis. You couldn't finish it. You couldn't abandon it. You couldn't complete achievements, and you couldn't get wins on ladder. So, they fixed it by removing players' ability to access this and dropping the questline from people that weren't supposed to have it. Unfortunate, but I will say, the only people that ran into this were people trying to get unintended packs from a new player questline by replaying the tutorial. I'm not saying the bug should have happened. I'm saying I didn't run into this bug, and I would guess most players didn't either. Just saying. Okay, and now the Blazing Transmutation bug, which has since been fixed. Okay. So, y'all know you can't evolve into Colossals. This is on purpose. This is by design. The rule, by the way, that they operate with is that you can randomly generate Colossals in hand, just not on the board. Even though the Countess kind of skirts that line, like whatever, let the Countess be the Countess. It doesn't bother me. You can generate Colossals in hand, but you can't evolve into them on the board, which kind of makes sense, right? You run into board space issues if it's unexpected. They're really, really powerful, multiple bodies, whatever. So, this was not the case with Blazing Transmutation. And a lot of people posted screenshots of turn 2 Neptulons, because you would turn 1 schooling on the coin, turn 2 Goldshire Knoll and transmutation it and get a Neptulon, and then the game would be over, right? But this was not the bug I thought it was. I originally thought, okay, they just forgot the scripting condition to not get Colossals on the card. Wyra posted a deck list that included 2 Snowfall Guardians, because the bug was not that every Colossal was removed. The bug was that every Colossal was added to the pool. So if you evolved a Snowfall Guardian with transmutation, you could get Zelag, you could get the Leviathan, you could get Glug. Every Colossal was accidentally added to Blazing Transmutation's pool instead of being removed from it.
There's a lot of 7-mana Colossals.
And well, that's even weirder, right? Because like Neptulon's a neutral, so it's letting you choose things that aren't from your class, which is also not typical with Discover.
Correct. It's a bug. It's not.
Well, yeah, I mean it's a bug, yeah, but yeah.
But yes, and it might just be like Colossals legal is never supposed to be set to 1. It's never supposed to be set to true. It's always false, right? Because false just means no Colossals. Because they never tested, does true mean yes Colossals? And it turns out, yes it does, that if Colossals allowed is true, they all jump in the pool. It's a very large pool. A lot of splashing around. Glug does not have good pool etiquette. So anyways, they were all in the pool. This has since been fixed. But my understanding is that it was only the Colossals that were erroneously added to the Discover pool. Kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, not when it happens to you, but fortunately it didn't happen to me too often.
No, but it's not great. They have also fixed it. They fixed it today in the server-side patch that went live earlier today, 25.4.1. So they did some BGs updates with some heroes got more armor, some heroes got less armor. They fixed some arena cards. There was some issue with some return to Nax cards not being added to not being pickable. Some high-performing cards in neutral, and 1 high-performing card in mage, we don't know what it is, have had their appearance rates adjusted. They removed Colossal Minions from the Blazing Transmutation Discover pool. Vengeful Walloper's cost reduction can no longer be increased by silencing outcast minions. The Rivendare Warrior tokens. So there was actually a bug where we found out about this from Dragonbird in the Coin Concede Discord, where if you had 2 Rivendare tokens die, like two of the 3 riders that got shuffled in, you could actually play dead the 3rd one and your opponent would blow up, even though the Rivendare, the 4th horseman hadn't actually died. You could play dead it and it would work. They fixed that. Fixed a bug where Haunting Nightmare could not haunt the same card. It can now haunt the same card, which is a significant buff to it, because you usually when you play Shadow Priest, you don't have very many cards in hand, so now you can double buff the same card and get a bunch of 4/3s.
I played a bunch of that card. I know you had too. I had no idea it was that was a bug. I thought that was just the way it worked.
Yeah, I assumed so too, because they wanted to visually mark it with the animation, but also it made the card worse. So I'm glad they made it better. I don't know. There was an issue in BGs where if you played a spell on Pufferquill in the shop, it would permanently get poisoned. They fixed that. There were some Mercs bugs they fixed. In duels, the Greatsword of the Ebon Blade Treasure can no longer grant a minion multiple times, or grant a minion reborn multiple times. And there was an issue where if you got Diamond Lothab, Diamond Reno Jackson, or Diamond Zola, you wouldn't get a reroll. If for some reason you want to reroll legendaries from ancient sets, you can do that now. So, it's great.
Yeah, and you should be offered that reroll when you log in after this patch is live, because that happened to me tonight. that I
There you
had
go.
gotten Diamond Zola and Diamond Reno. And as soon as I logged in tonight after the patch went live, it offered to re-roll those cards for me.
Nice. Cool. Well, that's the in-game stuff. All right. I guess this is economy. I'm not even going to play the economy bumper. It's too sad.
Well, we can talk about the portrait bundles before we do that, right?
I suppose we can. There are portrait bundles. Some weird ones. Nexus Champion Sarad. Like, I'm buying this, but how many people know what this card is? It's a
from the
TGT
Grand
Legendary.
Tournament.
Yeah.
Is the most fun card in that set, I think.
Really great. For those that don't know, it's a 5-mana 4/5 with Inspire, which is what happens when it triggers when you use your hero power. Adds a random spell from any class to your hand. So I played this card in Old School Control Warrior as basically like a mini Ysera. You would play it on 7, you would hero power, you would get a spell, and if it stayed up, you would just generate all sorts of stuff, and it was pretty cool. It was all right. The card is not playable by modern standards, and it was arguably not playable at the time, which is pretty telling. But it's a really fun card, and then they made it into a bundle for some reason. I wasn't expecting to see this in a million years, but I bought it.
It's a very, very deep cut. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the Mighty Maiev bundle, which is Maiev, but she's mad now. I don't know. She always seemed kind of mad to me.
maybe she's tired of playing FIFA against the rest of us.
I think that's the Korgel Maiev. I think that's the Korgel one. I'm not sure, though.
Mm.
I don't know. And then
I don't see any dogs in that one, though. I don't know.
Yeah, there's Daring Darien, who is the Korgel Death Knight. And then there's the Varian Rin Ultimate Hero, the animated one, Legendary Bundle with the hero frame and the animations, whatever. I haven't seen one of these in the wild yet because you have to play Warrior, and that's just not a thing people are doing right now. But I don't know how this one looks. The in-store portrait is less compelling to me than Sylvanas was, but I haven't seen this in the wild yet.
You can click on it in the store, and it'll show you a preview of what it looks like in game. So
yeah. Also something I forgot to mention, if you are an Android user and you have a Pixel phone, particularly a Pixel 6 or Pixel 7, like I do, so there was a bug that was resolved in January that is back now, where the latest update has made Pixel phones on Android really hard to use. It freezes in the collection and it disconnects, or freezes routinely in games after a few turns. They were able to fix it last time with a small client update. I imagine that will happen this upcoming week because it's a very similar issue to one that happened right after the Lich King launch. But just be aware, if you have a Pixel phone on Android, they are aware of it. I've personally reported to them, and they've told me that they're looking into it because it is the phone that I use. But it's not just you. And it is specifically Pixel 6s and Pixel 7s, which means it is incompatibility with Google's custom chip. And other software I have on my phone runs fine, so I'm not giving Blizzard a pass here, but at least they're aware of it, and it's specifically the models with the Tensor chip. So just be aware of that if that's happening to you. It's happening to me too. They know about it. Should be fixed with a small client update soon. Okay. Now we get to the heavy stuff. So, there were some major price increases in multiple regions this week. A lot of different foreign countries had their exchange rates to the US dollar updated. Some of these are relatively modest, 10% increase for one bundle in the UK, from £4 to $4.50 for 500 runestones. 12% increase only on the 500 runestone bundle. In Kazakhstan, 2 bundles were updated by about 20%. Ukraine, 3 bundles increased by about 20%. Japan, 5 bundles increased by 2%. Okay. But then, some places, Brazil, most prices were more than doubled, increased by over 100%. And Argentina in particular, increased by well over 600%, almost 7 times the price of what it was before. Now, my understanding is that the Argentina economy is hard to understand, especially as a foreigner, with some strange laws and some local instability. I don't claim to be a geopolitical scholar. I don't have any idea what's going on there, and it has been explained to me multiple times that things are strange here, and it's difficult to even explain why. I believe that. And what I've also come across, and all these links are in the show notes that provide us some information and some context, is that this is something that's becoming more and more common in the gaming space. Is that if you VPN into Argentina, you get like a massive discount, because there are two different ways to price your game outside of your home country. You can either convert everything basing on the value in your local currency, or you can convert everything based on the local cost of living as to where you are selling the game. In Argentina, the general trend has been to convert it to the local currency as to where people buy it, which is relatively a small amount. The currency has less buying power. And so overall, you're going to see things like a game like Elden Ring, you get for equivalent to $25 US, right? Large discount. But relative to the cost of living in Argentina, it's not a discount. That's just the price. That's just what it costs. But so Benage, who is he worked for NetEase doing a lot of the localization of translating things back and forth between English and Chinese, tweeted about how what was happening, creating the Chinese players who were displaced when the China server shut down. They made a new account, chose Argentina because it had the lowest prices, and VPN'd in. And apparently it had a name, Argentinian in Heart. And players would VPN and buy at these lower prices. This is my understanding. Now, I'm not an executive. I'm not a finance VP. So I'm not going to speak from the perspective of running a business, and I know that this stuff is complicated. But I will say, if the choice is screw over loyal customers who have lived in a region and paid the same price for a long time, because other people are now buying things in that region for a lower price than you think they should pay, or try and get the people who aren't on a server that you no longer operate to pay the full price twice while screwing over your local customers, I'm going to do the first one. That's what I'm going to do. But I'm not a global SVP of finance. That's probably why. Because likely from a business perspective, the air quotes correct decision is to make the people who are VPNing in pay the full price, because you get more money from all the displaced China users, or from wherever else people are VPNing in, than you do in terms of raw revenue from the locals. That's probably the correct business-only, bottom-line-only decision. But the world is more than just bottom lines. So, we have friends from Argentina that play. They're probably not going to play anymore because the game is no longer affordable. Because it's an $80 pre-order is now half of the monthly average salary in that country. That is not realistic, right? If the monthly pre-order cost me the same thing as my mortgage, I would not make the pre-order. I would not do the mega bundle if it cost me the same as my mortgage. It's not worth it. So, I don't know. It's, in a perfect world, only the people in that local country would buy things in that, relative to their cost of living. The reality is that people were theoretically taking advantage of that. But also, I feel really bad for the people that lived there and played for years and now are being priced out of the game. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And also worth saying that if it's mostly displaced China players who are buying stuff in Argentina, it's because they're replacing what they lost when the China servers were taken offline. Right? So they're getting a discount, but they're also having to buy all the stuff that they already had and rebuild a collection on a new server because the collections don't transfer between servers. So is that money that you're losing? That's another question to ask, because would that if not for the NetEase situation, would those people even be buying anything? And is this not just slight incremental currency incremental revenue that you're not actually losing anything on. It's also worth saying these are digital goods and that there's no manufacturing cost, just the cost of bandwidth or whatever, which, I mean, is neither here nor there. But it's, I don't, it seems like it's just like a snowball effect from the whole NetEase situation, which seems like we don't know what happened with that, but that also seems kind of questionable in terms of business decisions to begin with.
Yeah, it's
Most people, I think, are not going to go to these lengths. Hence the spike, right? Because if it was the only way that you could play Hearthstone, and then you're looking around for, well, I want to build a collection again, but I don't want to pay exactly what I paid initially. It's just one of those like domino effects, right? Where just like one thing leads to the next. And for this to be how they deal with it, another tragic thing, I know esports isn't what it was, but in terms of LATAM, Argentina and Brazil were like the two best countries in the Latin American region. And they are the ones getting hit the hardest by this change. There's lots of consistent players, people who love the game, whole LATAM teams based out of those regions. And some of them may have to stop playing or like try and do it free to play.
Yeah.
Pasco uninstalled. Really sad.
Yeah.
Really, really sad. And there are two different ways, as I said, two different ways to price your game. You can price your game or whatever it is you're selling based on your currency or theirs. And there are plenty of companies that choose to do it based on their own local currency and make everyone pay the same amount worldwide without taking cost of living into account. Plenty of companies do this. I think what really hurts here is that it was one way, and then it instantly became the other as soon as it became clear that it potentially hit an opportunity cost that wasn't hitting the bottom line. It wasn't even they were losing money. They weren't making enough. Right? Because the only thing that it hit was the amount of money that the displaced players on the server that got shut down through their own negotiations weren't paying because they were buying it at a lower rate for the second time. Gosh, it sounds awful when you put it that way, doesn't it?
It sure does, yeah.
But
and the other thing is there was no warning, right? So people
Nope.
couldn't go, oh, let me, because I can, sort of afford to do something, let me get as many runestones as I feel comfortable doing so. This would have been a huge win for runestones if there was some warning, because people would have been able to bank that and then use those stored runestones to like buy them some time, give them some adjustment period.
Well, that's probably also why they didn't.
I'm sure it is, but
Yeah.
That makes people forced to just uninstall.
yeah.
And like normally, like this wouldn't be a story, right? Like this is not something we would talk about normally because I saw some people complaining about, saying, well, how can you raise prices in Ukraine? Like, yeah, it's they're in a war. It's unfortunate, but also currencies fluctuate, and this is a normal thing that companies do from time to time. And like the UK one, I'm sure is specifically because the way that they had set up the conversions on runestones, it was actually cheaper to buy multiple bundles of the 500 than to buy the 8,000 runestones. Like you would end up with more runestones by buying the 500 bundles than by buying the 8,000 because of just like how they multiplied out when they did the conversion. So they messed up the conversion, they were correcting it. But like once you start making changes that are measured in triple digit percentage points, like you need to look at that really closely and ask if it's actually worth it. And I could imagine that like a finance SVP is probably looking at like the number of sales that are in that region prior to China shutting down, and probably decided that they were going to lose some customers, but it was worth whatever they were going to lose here. But I mean, the goodwill is not something that you can quantify, and that's something that, especially when there's not a lot of great news coming out of Blizzard right now, that's just kind of piling on with that it's a missed opportunity is what it is.
And I look at someone like Nayara, who has been, enjoying some Marvel Snap recently.
Yeah.
She's Brazilian. Her boyfriend's Argentinian. She would love to be a creator for Hearthstone, I'm sure, but you look at this price change and maybe you just decide, you know what, I can just stream Marvel Snap now.
Yeah, because I mean, even in Brazil, that's not an insignificant price hike either.
Oh,
I mean, it's more than double, right? But
Yeah.
in Argentina, it is 6 times more.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So I understand this is complicated. If you were listening to this and you are an economist, we're sorry if we made any mistakes. Feel free to email us if you know any specifics here and you're like, this is your field. Glad to share any pertinent information because we're really just speaking from the perspective of seeing a bunch of our friends be really demoralized and literally leave the game immediately upon going to buy the mini set. It's not a warning. It was just they entered the shop. Is this a bug? The morning the mini set comes out, is this a bug? No. It's just 7 times the price now. So it's just, I think the game has just kind of vanished from these countries, and Feral Diablo in the chat is making a good point. If you are now an Argentina Hearthstone creator, who is your audience now? Because it's certainly nobody local.
yeah. Other Spanish speakers who had less of an increase.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like maybe this was the right call for business purposes. Maybe the prices were inaccurate before. I really can only speak to the reactions of my friends who really struggled now, continuing to engage with the game. So, all right. Well, there's that one done. By the way, a new Hearthstone bot scandal. There were a bunch of bans. Let's see here. I cropped all these windows before and then they got messed up.
I do love the choice of the life sentence card art on this article, by the way.
Yes.
It's a good one, yeah.
So, speaking of which, by the way, there were a bunch of bans. A post in a Taiwanese forum revealed that Blizzard banned hundreds of Hearthstone accounts for botting. They were allegedly the property of Chinese Hearthstone players who registered them under fake Argentina addresses to benefit from lower regional prices. If you look at the posts, there is an actual forum post that was made that lists a bunch of usernames with emails, like a bunch of email addresses, or at least domain names rather. I think it lists just the domain, and there's a lot of like QQ.com, which is a regional China email address with Argentina fake addresses. So this is clearly something Blizzard is taking very seriously for them to publicly post about banning few hundred accounts and identifying them. The only reason to do that is to send a warning to anyone else that's going to try this.
Yeah.
So, warning sent. This really clearly is some place that someone at Blizzard feels like is impacting the bottom line.
Yeah. Or it's affecting their ability to eventually restart negotiations to re-enter China, right?
Yeah.
Because that might be something else that, and I don't know what those kinds of negotiations look like, but it could be that if, whoever's in charge of the, in China, the Chinese government, in terms of, what's going on, if they know that you're allowing this to happen for them to leave leave through a VPN and play that way, maybe that's frowned upon and that hurts a chance of getting together with another partner or something. Like that whole relationship there's a lot of stuff going on in that whole relationship to re-enter the country if they're able to do that.
Honestly, I don't know how much of a difference this would make, but with all this and the next issue we're going to get into, I'm just like, Microsoft cannot make this acquisition fast enough.
And that's
we're
not going well either.
I know. It's just like there's so many external factors that don't care about any of this, but all of the players, and I feel many of the devs are just like, please Please just let it happen.
Can they just like give like buy Blizzard and leave Activision alone so that we get out of the Call of Duty thing, and then that would solve the problem? Maybe that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that this is coming from outside the house, if you know what I mean. So there was an all hands yesterday, company-wide Q&A. None of us were there. None of us are Blizzard employees. However, GameDeveloper.com wrote an article, and they said they confirmed the comments that they published with a PR rep. So everything in this article is corroborated, or at least the comments that were discussed. So there was a Q&A, an all-hands Q&A with pre-screened questions with CEO Mike Ybarra and a bunch of other executives. And there are a few notes that I'm going to share. Now, you should go read this article just to get the full picture. But the vibes I'm getting out of Blizzard are pretty bad right now. So, my understanding is that they announced that return to office is coming, that all employees will be expected to have a hybrid schedule where they are in the office at least some part of every single week, and that it could include a local office to their area or the head office in Irvine, California. But, like, there are offices in Austin, so if you live in Austin, you work in Austin, you could go into the Austin office. Now, does anyone else from Hearthstone or WoW or whatever work at the Austin office? I don't know. But you'd have to go in anyway, even if it's just a remote. Okay. But that's coming. Second, that Blizzard employees are only receiving 58% of their profit-sharing bonus, even though the fourth quarter was, air quotes, especially strong, and there were multiple games shipped. So, my understanding is that, so I'm going to read this from the article. After reportedly defending the ranking system currently in place, that's about stack ranking, by the way, the review thing that apparently the process was defended. We talked about that. After reportedly defending the ranking system currently in place, Ybarra began making comments that would truly anger employees. These began with a statement that seemed to imply Blizzard Entertainment executives are equally impacted by the decision to slash the annual profit-sharing bonus. According to several sources, Ybarra stated something to the effect of, if you think that executives are making a lot of money and you aren't, you're living in a myth. That's the CEO. Okay?
Really?
It is technically correct that a 58% is the same percentage for everybody, but
Sure.
but I think
if
this
your
dovetails
base is
really
higher-
nicely. This dovetails really nicely with the price hikes we just talked about. Paying the same amount when it's a different relative percentage of your income is not the same thing. So,
Well, paying the same percentage
yes.
when it's a different. Yeah.
So, also remote employees. There were apparently not clear action plans provided to retain talent. There were some, again, suggestions that new offices would be opened in unnamed locations to act as central hubs. He did, however, say the following. At the end of the day, we want people to be happy, and if decisions about being happy don't align with where we're going, and you won't be happy, then you'll have to do what will make you happy.
There's a lot going on in that sentence.
It is saying that is, if you don't like it, then quit, but nicer. Now,
Yeah.
I have seen Mike Ybarra, like, I follow him on Twitter, and he streams on Twitch, and he plays a bunch of keys, and he seems like a guy that is a fan of the games and was building this persona of someone that you want to be around, that you want to interact with, that is genuine, right? I don't know what's going on. I don't know, like, if these comments were out of context or he was under some kind of pressure or whatever, but the vibe that I've gotten is that this has been particularly hard for Blizzard employees. And there's more, by the way. But it's been particularly hard for Blizzard employees because there was always this desire to believe that it was coming from above, that it was coming from ABK executive leadership. This is not an ABK executive from the parent company. This is the Blizzard CEO, the top person at the company that they work for. And these are the comments that they got to deal with. And there were even more that QA in particular really was hit hard by this information. Because QA, a lot of them are hourly. And that 58%, the bonus really hurts when you're making $22 an hour in Orange County, California.
I'm
but-
sure many of them don't live there. I'm sure they commute from a cheaper county.
Right.
Or
Right, but then they have to
work
spend all that time
remotely.
commuting, right?
Or they
Right.
work
Right.
remotely, which I guess is not happening anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
and like, to what degree? Say you're someone who, I don't know, lives in the Midwest and really love your house and have put a lot of work into it. I don't know any Midwest offices
Well,
of Blizzard.
They clarified. So Blizzard was reached out to for this story, and they confirmed all the quotes, and then they saw basically what the reaction was, and then they reached out to the site again to provide some clarifications, and they apparently clarified after the fact that people who had been hired with an expectation of remote only, like during the pandemic, wouldn't be affected by that, right? And like customer service reps who typically work out of their houses won't be affected by that. Now, we'll see, right? Because like is that something that they're just saying to the press, or is that something that's actually going to be held on to? I guess we'll see what happens. But I mean, if for someone to move back to Southern California, if they are not living there, it's a pay cut, right? If you're not living near the office, you're either going to spend an inordinate amount of your time commuting, because traffic in Southern California is no joke, or I mean, you may still have to pay a ridiculous amount because the housing market there is completely ridiculous, and the cost of living is way higher than it is in other parts of the country. So having to move there to be local to the office, it constitutes a significant pay cut. And especially if it was someone who was hired with the expectation that they were going to be for remote. And by the way, other studios have been jumping on top of this and posting like, we've got openings and we're full remote. And, if you want to continue to be remote and come work on this cool game with us. I've seen several of those on Twitter just in the last day. And I don't blame them. And also one other thing that is the chat for this Q&A was limited to emojis only, by the way.
Of
So
course.
they knew what the reaction to this was going to be when they started.
And it's important to note as well, the departments that are hourly rate, QA and customer service, also that are the lowest paid to the company. When those departments came up, it's unclear if they were specifically mentioned. The clarifying comment from PR is saying they weren't. But the statement was made that some positions are not considered long-term disciplines, and the company wants people to grow and take on expanded responsibility. Now, that means if you were a QA person, you were being told your position is a stepping stone to something that actually matters. That's what that message is saying. And Blizzard has been a company that has built a qualitative QA, not a quantitative one, for years and years, and has always stood by it and been proud of it. And this is a pretty big devaluation of the department that Brian Birmingham left like a month ago. So, all things considered here, the people that you might see on social media that make the game that we talk about here in this show and that make the games you love to play from Blizzard are all probably hurting pretty bad right now. Because if I were a Blizzard dev, I don't know what I would do other than get my resume ready, because this company is deeply embattled in a visible way that's so hard to stomach that I don't know if this is all an elaborate plan to get people to quit before the merger or what, but if it was, I could not engineer it better.
Yeah.
If that was the
Yeah.
plan, I could not do a better job.
I mean, the whole like last couple of months just seems like Blizzard and Activision and ABK leadership just like laying out rakes and then stepping on them themselves, right? Like everything since the China announcement has just been like one thing after another, and because there's not really like there's not a good justification to make people go into the office if they're getting their work done as it is, unless you're unless like you're saying, like they want to incentivize some people to take themselves off the books without having to do a layoff.
Look,
Because like they're getting the same job done, they're shipping games, the results stated that they shipped multiple things, and that's why the numbers were good last quarter. And it doesn't, if there's no benefit in the work's getting done, who cares, right?
Look, there are some companies and very specific people who perhaps own Twitter who just seriously believe that being in the office is important.
Yeah.
And no stats you throw at them showing that people are more productive, being able to do remote are going to be able to persuade them because they just believe it. I mean, I remember, additionally, this is slightly different, but in the same vein, there were all kinds of people that were baffled when things were sort of coming back, that people didn't want to go back to the office.
Yeah.
Because they were extroverts and they loved going into the office. And other people were like, no, I don't actually, like, I have friends outside of work, and like, I don't need the water cooler conversation, right? Just let me do my job and perhaps even do it better from either the comfort of my own home or maybe
Shared
Like,
space
name
or
of
coffee
this.
shop or whatever.
yeah.
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 Right. It's we're dangerously close to editorializing here. So all I will say to close this out is, if you are interacting with a Blizzard developer, with someone that makes the game that you love right now, they are going through a tough time. So please make sure that you are kind and nice and understanding and respectful. And I will say, the standard meta right now looks like some things were missed. And before this All Hands came out, I wasn't sure what was going on, but let me tell you, I cannot imagine that a company with this kind of guidance right now is well-resourced, is given the appropriate amount of support. And we've seen this with 6-set mini-sets before, like last year when Kazakhstan's Lair came out, and I'm aware of what I said, I'm not correcting myself, where this time of year they have to test the core set, they have to test post-rotation, and they miss something in the 6-set mini-set because it's a format that isn't going to be around that long. And the team just doesn't seem like it has that many designers left on it anymore, with everyone working a lot of extra shifts, everyone working a lot of extra responsibilities. So I'm not going to say that I am okay with Evolve Shaman landing the way it is. Like, I would rather that it didn't. But I don't know how much time they really had to go through this, and at least the picture seems to be snapping more into focus. And it's, anyone that tries to get work done in this kind of environment, nothing but respect. Nothing but respect. Because it seems like a hard thing to do. All right.
Yeah, I think we can agree that we also want the people who make the game to be happy, with no subtext to that sentence, unlike the one in the QI. We just want them to be happy, and we want them to feel fulfilled making and feel respected making the game that we enjoy.
Yes. And speaking of finding ways to enjoy the game, shall we do a little mini set review and go through some lists that we have handy? Just to find the fun. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, as previously stated, this format is very much formed around Shaman, even though it's not super high play rate. There's going to be some things people are doing specifically to counter Shaman. And one of the things that you may note is Quest Priest is a thing, because you get to run double Shadow Word Ruin, and that's good against evolves into big stuff. So our canary in the coal mine returns. But I think the coolest thing is that so many DK decks are finally here. I think it took a while to get to a point where it felt like you could play, any of the forms of Death Knight, and people
It didn't
are
take that
really...
long. I think it only took
Well-
1 quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It was a constructive.
it's still the
mini
new
set.
class. People are excited. So I think that is part of what's contributing to the lower number of shamans, is that people are exploring, whatever kind of DK it is that they fancy. I think less Frost, because that's the one that has been most playable all this time. I have seen not very much Frost DK, but there's some out there.
And it's
There's
different
a new-
even when you are seeing it. Yeah.
Yes, there's a new list.
Yeah, that list that's on the screen right now, at least on the stream, that is not the list we were playing a week ago.
Oh, I see. Construct Quarter makes Acolyte of Death playable.
Yeah,
A
it's
Construct
much
Quarter
more.
does a lot of things.
Yeah,
Wait. Oh no. I just looked at the entire first half of the deck. That is very different.
yeah, it's much more minion heavy, a lot less reliant on finding burn spells, and you don't even run Lady Death Whisper anymore because you just run Marrow Manipulator instead, and
Right.
and then Construct Quarter just hard carries, and then you're kind of like Unholy with a different set of rune specific cards.
Yeah, I mean, Foul Egg immediately became so much more playable because of Construct Quarter, and I think that will continue to be the case even once they put the durability down to 2.
Or cut the
assuming-
stats on the things that pop out of
Cut
it.
the
or other.
stats.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah.
Or
And
both. Why not both?
before we get too deep into specifics of deck lists, all right, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to pull back a little bit. All right. So, if you're asking yourself, is Evolve Shaman broken? Yes.
Yes.
It is the best deck. It is broken. It is not unbeatable. It is format warping, but on any website you go to, Vicious Syndicate, HS Replay, it is the best deck. It is not close. There are decks that can get to the 40-ish, like they can get to a 55% matchup against it. That's the best you can do with Quest Priest or Frost DK. There are a couple other ways to do it. If you build all removal Priest decks, if you build all removal Warrior decks, you can kind of get in the ballpark. It's possible to beat. However, it is clearly too good and will be nerfed. Second of all, on every list you look at, on any website, I checked basically all of them, it's Evolve Shaman followed by DK, Frost and Unholy in some combination. In part because they're able to get under the Shaman. I mean, Frostworm's Fury just is good against Shaman in general. And also because Construct Quarter is the next problem on the list. It is too good, and like you said, Edel, needs to be nerfed. And if they nerf Evolve Shaman but not DK, the format doesn't really get better. Might get it's a little less scammy, but not a lot less scammy. You just end up with Wild Paw Knoll being a DK card instead of a rogue card, and that's not really a huge improvement. So, these are two cards that I would strongly expect to be pulled back. Nothing else is a real statistical outlier right now, but you will see this consistently. If you want to play Evolve Shaman, keep Schooling, keep Knoll, and then keep Prescience.
Muck pools.
Well, it's so I think you keep an
Some sort of an
Evolver.
evolver. Some sort of a one-cost evolver.
If I don't have any of those cards, I don't keep them. I want one of those things. I want Schooling.
Well, with those, yeah.
Yeah. If you have a Knoll or access to a Knoll already, you can keep an Evolver. Always keep Schooling no matter what. And then just evolve until your opponent dies.
Yeah. And think before you play muck pools on one, because it's not always correct based on how many cards you'll have on your hand if you top deck a Knoll.
I think you usually want to not do that just because you want
Yes.
Noel to be playable. Especially if you're on the coin,
yeah.
you really don't want to. Yeah.
I was in Lorinda's stream and Sottle was there and he was correcting me when I said that. And I don't remember exactly which scenario is which. But I think if you're on the play, it's fine because it's going to take you a while anyway, or maybe it's if you're on the coin, it's fine. I don't. One or the other.
Oh man,
It's
it's so plausible that Sottle has an opinion about this that he calls objectively correct. I don't know what the
Yeah.
opinion is, but it's so plausible that he has
He's-
one and that he says it's correct.
But he's so confident when he says it, right? That it's
He sure is.
Yeah. And he's right more often than he's not. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. But yes, if you don't know if you should play it or not, you probably should not play it
Yeah,
on one
it's-
because it
Chad
makes your
is
no
saying-
harder to get out.
Chat saying that you play it going first and you don't going second, which
I
like
think
it's
that's
a
what he was
reasonable,
saying. Yes.
a reasonable enough
Yes.
rule. Because you don't have the extra mana from the coin, so you don't actually save mana by holding
Right.
it. It actually costs you mana. Okay, I get it.
Right.
So, anyways, okay, that's the zoomed out look, right? If you want to win, you should probably play Evolve Shaman. If you don't want to do that, you should probably play Frost or Unholy DK. And if you don't want to do that, if you want to do some other stuff, we have a lot of lists. There are 14 lists. The link is in the show notes. It is too long for Twitch chat, so I tweeted it and pasted the tweet in Twitch chat because the link is more than 500 characters because there are 14 lists here. There is something from almost every class. I couldn't find a new mage deck. Druid is dead as a class. Like, there are some really, really bad horseman decks, but I only included one of those for my boy Clark. And otherwise, most of the horseman decks are pretty awful. But most classes, there's something in the show notes that you can try out. Go on over here. It'll be posted in the Discord. It's posted on the Twitter.
And
Will say
Warrior's also kind of hard to find right now.
I found one, but yes.
Okay.
I haven't tried it sort of since the day one stream, but Paladin was actually feeling like my best.
Oh, we didn't talk
Horseman
about
deck.
this.
I tried the Shaman. I thought Shaman was going to be good because of prescience, and you could potentially have sort of the null to secure early game stuff, and then still just do the Horseman. You can have Varian draw two of them. I thought it would have sort of the most consistent draw, and you win with from the other side. But Paladin really impressed me because you've got the control tools with Wild Pyro Equality or Equality City Tax, Pyro Holy Maki roll, like all that kind of stuff. And because of Order in the Court, you can really consistently, if you just run one front lines and then Cariel, and then it goes, I think, the Horseman. So you can just make sure that you can get that first Horseman from playing Order in the Court. You play it, have it die, and that then shuffles, so you're no longer ordered, which doesn't usually matter, but it can. And when you front lines on 10 mana, Cariel will reduce an equality you have in hand
Little
to
carry.
1 mana off the rush. You
Yeah,
get a
the little-
Pyro into play at the same time as you get the 3 Horsemen, and then you play the equality for 1 and you clear them. Now, you need to be able to summon 4 minions, generally. Because it's like, yeah, I guess more if you need the Cariel. Oftentimes I'll have already done the Cariel rush, not off front lines to reduce equality. But like you have to be careful to know how many board slots you need, so you'll actually get all of them.
So
and that-
the important thing that you're not saying, because most people have not played with front lines as recently as you have, which is to say ever, is that front line stops when one player's board is full.
Right.
So
So
if your
your opponent's
opponent
board
has
needs to be
several-
mostly clear.
Right. So if your opponent has several minions on board, then you will not summon everything that you need to summon, and you won't be able to pull this off.
I
But-
don't have a list for that in the show notes. It's just go on HS Replay and search for front lines. I'm sure it's there.
You might have to DM me or something.
Yeah, just tweet it out.
It's not on the front page.
No, it hasn't made it that far. So we do have 4 different DKs here. Frost and Holy and Blood, all from different streamers. So the Frost one, as alluded to, is the Hunter Ace Pheno list. To quote Pheno, it's Giga Basta dude. So it's very minion heavy because Construct Quarter. So you cut most of the frost spells, and this was being tested before the mini set in a highly questionable mech-based frost DK that Clark played, which it's because the idea there was you always get Horn of Winter and Frostworm's Fury off your Frigidara, and that you just want to play a small minion package, which is or a small spell package. It's fine. So this is also very dense on minions, very light on spells. The only spells in this list are Horn of Winter, Frost Strike, and Frostworm's Fury. I'm hearing in chat that a lot of people have replaced Frost Strike with Howling Blast, which seems better to me, because that freezes face, probably pretty good against rogues, so because you don't run Icy Touch. But otherwise, it's super minion heavy. Acolyte of Death is in there. Marrow Manipulator, the 6-mana 5/5 triple frost card that spends 5 corpses and shoots a missile for each one, a 2-damage missile. Card's pretty good. So that's in there. The Unholy list, it has Egg in it. I'll point out this deck list made Steve ping me and say I hate it when you're right. So
And I do.
No Hands Gamer took the pre-mini set Unholy DK, added in Eggs and Construct Quarters, and it's the best deck on HS Replay by win rate. So it's pretty good. The Triple Blood list, this is Glory's list, and this is not a list that is designed to win. It's a list designed to beat Shamans. So it is the only thing that I would call a win condition is Rivendare, which is almost certainly worse than Mograine. Almost certainly.
It's still better than Ren. It allows you to not run Renathal though, which is an improvement to the deck.
Sure, but it doesn't run Mograine. I think it should run Mograine. Either way,
Yeah.
I don't think this is a Renathal like arms race meta. I don't think that's the neutral legendary we need to worry about right now. But it's super removal dense, and with the Neptulon off of Blazing Transmutation bug fix, that means your opponent can turn to whatever, and you say, I don't care, obliterate it, because that card got buffed to be relevant, and it's really nice. And so you can run Shaman out of stuff. It happens somewhat rarely, but it is possible. I played this deck for 2 games against 2 Shamans. I beat the first one, I lost to the second one, because against the second one I didn't find my Soul Stealer, and the game was over, because they had Bloodlust. Double Bloodlust, in fact. So that'll happen, but it's an option, it's out there. And then we have Rainbow DK by our own Edelweiss. She's been talking about this deck, and I'm going to give her the chance to do that again. Tell us about the creation here, because this looks different from what I've played in Rainbow DK.
So, yeah, I initially started with a Frost Blood list because I figured that would be the way for me to play Syndragosa. I figured you would just sort of be dipping in to the burn elements of Frost, and then have some hard removal in Frost Queen Syndragosa and Patchwork. But it didn't feel like it was really leaning into the strength of kind of either thing, really. And it just, particularly with Construct Quarter, having more minions is better. And
Oh, that's in this list too, by the way.
yes, well, Construct Quarter is just in Death Knight. It's like the Shadow card in Rogue. It's in Dex.
Yeah.
But I decided, you know what? Let me take a look at the single rune Unholy cards I can play. And that gives me Plague Strike and Blightfang, which is not much, but it is enough. Because if you look at the early game, we've got Bonebreaker, Noxious Cadaver, Obliterate, Plague Strike. So you are really, really solid at killing people's early game minions, which tend to be 2/2s, or if they're a little bigger, you can Plague Strike them. And then if they do go pretty wide before you can handle it all, you've got Blightfang that you can follow up with Remorseless Winter. And you've still got, the classic coin Chill Fallen Baron into Construct Quarter, or vice versa if you know you need to get the rush out. So it's weird because the early game you play sort of like a controlling kind of deck, and then you transition into just playing things that kill things, like Thessarian, No Muncher, Sylvanas, Frost Queen Syndragosa, Patchwork, and I and a fair number of games with Alexstrasza the Lifebinder. You still run stuff like Nerubian Vizier and School Teacher because those discover things that kill things, or whatever else you need. There have totally been times where I have won because I was able to brand School Teacher into double vampiric blood against something that I was going to need that life against. So it just feels so good to me because of its flexibility. And even the games where I lose, I'm like, I think if I look back and I had done, pick this kind of discover instead, like often I lose because I misevaluated what my opponent was playing. Like I thought since things are kind of all over the place now in some respects still, there'll be times where I think someone's playing one deck and they're actually doing something different, or so I picked wrong at my discover because of that. But it taps into my favorite thing, which is removing the opponent's stuff while creating your own. It's the best thing, and it's got a lot of mid-rangey cards as well, like No Muncher and Cindergosa.
There's a whole semantics debate wrapped up inside what you're doing right now. It's a very high tempo deck, very high tempo conversation.
Yes.
Look, it's a high tempo mid range deck. It's fantastic.
Oh my god!
A School Teacher is almost
she said the M word.
Against
School Teacher is almost a 5-drop because you can play it and the Noggling on the same turn. So even though the deck has no 5-drops, like School Teacher can sometimes be a 5-drop. Location plus Hero Power is sometimes a 5-drop. That's totally respectable. It just has so many things going on, and you brand just for value. There's no like particular thing that you're trying to brand. Plenty of times I've just gone brand Astalor on 5 to get the extra copies because I know that they'll struggle with dealing with those resources. Brand School Teacher on 9 is fabulous because then you get the 2 Nogglings and you can double both Nogglings. That's probably my favorite one. But you can also brand Patchwork, or if you get a Noggling for Horn of Winter, then you can brand Noggling as Horn of Winter and then do a brand Astalor finish, or even brand Alex.
Well, all right. I'm gonna try this later. But yeah, this definitely looks like just a stuff that does stuff. So the reference I made is for any Magic players that were playing Standard 23 years ago, you might get this reference. Because it didn't land for my co-host, I had to look up a deck list. There was a deck called Snake Tongue, which is Mystic Snake and Flame Tongue Kavu in a blue, red, green minion-based value deck, which is what this is, where you just took all the chasers at the time that did a little extra if the game went longer, and you threw them in a deck together. So
it was too late for my Magic vintage, so.
Yeah, it's that's basically what this is, so I'm looking forward to it. We also have some spicier lists here. This next one, if you want to hear me talk about this list, go subscribe to Clark Hellscream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Clark Hellscream. He's going to do a YouTube video about it too, because we collabed on this one. I'm taking like 10% credit, because I tweeted a total meme idea about the best way to build Spell Rivendare DH. And by best way, I mean it was a meme, right? Vandar, Deathspeaker Blackthorn, which summons 3 Death Rattles that cost 5 or less from your deck. The 5 or less is very important. Somehow that card was pre-balanced around Rivendare, and then Rivendare is your 3rd minion, because the idea is you go get the Rivendare, you play it, and then you let it die. Then you go get the Vandar and you play it, and then you go get the Blackthorn to summon the 3 other horsemen. Super memey, right? But I was talking to Clark today. I asked him for the code, and he said the setup is very involved. And then I said, wait a second.
Not for Clark. Clark's decks are usually so straightforward.
So he said, I'm thinking about Masked Reveler. And I said, oh, what about Dinner Performer? And he said, yeah, the 6-mana 4/4 that summons a 2/2. And I was like, no. Dinner Performer. Oh, wait, you don't know that this card exists. Dinner Performer is a 3-mana 2/3 from Nathria that has a battle cry, summons a minion from your deck that you had the mana to play. So you have to have the remaining mana. So you have Rivendare, in your spell pool. You let Rivendare die. Then you go get Dinner Performer. You can either get this the turn before turn 9. I let you Magical Christmas Land last week, Steve. Don't you laugh at me. I let you do this last week. You let me have this now. So you can either do this, like you can bound Soul on turn 8 if you want to go get the Performer. But if you're worried about your Performer getting stolen, you can wait till turn 10 and do this all on turn 10. Bound Soul, Dinner Performer, to go get a 6-drop. To go get one of the knights, the horsemen. You know what you do with the other 6 mana? You Proving Grounds, and you kill the other 2. Use Dispose to shuffle them back in. If your Dinner Performer gets the Rush minion, gets the Rush DK, the 1 and 3, you trade it, you Proving Grounds, and you win the game on turn 9. I sent this to Clark. The first game he played, he did that and killed on turn 9 with Rivendare Horseman. I have the replay. It really happened.
Oh my god.
100% win rate, retire the deck, never sees light of day again.
He said 100% win rate. I'm making a video. Do you want me to tag you? Which is even better. So, codes in the show notes. I should say, for those of you that are pursuing win rate, maybe pick one of the other decks on the list. For those of you pursuing fun, this is the one.
This is definitely a tier fun deck, yes.
Rainbow DK is the one, I promise.
They're next to each other. You don't have to choose. You just get to play more Hearthstone. Okay.
This is Dinner Performer of card I don't understand fame, right?
Yes.
That
yes,
it is that one. I don't know if this helps anybody understand better, but I did enjoy explaining the card to Clark because he thought it was a different card that was actually playable. I said, no, not Masked Reveler, Dinner Performer. And he didn't say I didn't remember this card. He said I did not know this card existed, which is just a really marvelous moment. I felt good about that. Okay. We've got some more decks of various degrees of efficiency here. We've got Dullacash's low curve Quest Hunter. Steve, you put this one in the list.
He's been trying to make fetch happen with Quest Hunter for a while, and this adds the Trinket Tracker, which draws a 1-mana card from your deck. So that kind of helps with the draw a little bit. He hit like 400 something legend with this deck.
Yeah, it's got double Urchin Spines.
Yeah.
1 mana, make your spells poisonous because of Evolve Shaman.
Yes, I mean you have to, because otherwise you just die to a 12/12 on turn 3. But I believe that he didn't start at like 492 and won one game and then posted to Twitter, because that's not how he rolls. So I mean, but he also he's been playing Quest Hunter like I've been playing Quest Priest. So you know your mileage may vary, but if you want to give Quest Hunter one last run around the block, then this is something that's potentially viable.
Yep. Unclear if it's any good, but also Quest Hunter historically has been decent against Shaman because it wins off the board. But the current iteration of Shaman, pretty fast, so good luck. We have Pure Paladin here from Bunny Hopper. Small change from before. It only runs 1 Order in the Court, and then it has 2 Gold Wings and a Pure Raider. And let me tell you, we're going to hear about Pure Raider after the nerfs, because this routinely draws 5 cards, including both Light Rays. Usually almost always a Sinful Sous Chef, and then you get either a Seafloor Savior or I actually think the Seafloor Saviors, and then a Goldwing or 2. And Goldwing is alright, especially because Pure Raider is a mech now, so Goldwing's pretty consistently active. I will say this list does not run Katori Lightblade. I cut a Battle Vicar to fit in Katori. I think that's just better than the second Battle Vicar. I just threw it in there because we run 4 Quel'Thalas, we run Seal of Blood. It seemed like the right thing to do, so I did it. But a lot of fun, gonna be pretty good. Tonberry Blue had a Shadow Priest list that I love. Told all the stories about it. I beat Scale Denny for 17. That was not enough to stop me. I beat turn 4 Dragonfire Amulet, turn 5 Miracle Growth. They died on the same turn they played the Miracle Growth. So just saying, I really think there's something here. Steve, I know you were playing it. You cut the Banshee for Arms Dealer, but otherwise like the other 28.
Yeah, I didn't have the kind of success that you did. I bailed on it pretty quickly because I was just finding that I wasn't really able to get there. Like I'd either get overrun by Shaman or I'd get like ground out by a control deck. But I think there's something there again after we get some of the rough edges taken off this meta. Like As much as I was down on Rotting Necromancer, that card is legit. It is a lot of damage. I mean, 4 mana play a 5/5 Mind Blast your opponent is a decent card, and
So-
it does some work in that deck.
So I can contextualize a little better. That made me understand the card a little more and made me more interested to play it. 4 mana 5/4 Battlecry Dredge, if it hits an undead, gain charge, would be crazy. And this
Yeah.
dodges taunt.
Uh-huh. Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah. So
I mean,
it's just.
look. I looked
really
at it and I was like, "Oh, it's Glavebound Adept. It's ridiculous."
Yeah, except it costs less and does more. It's now,
And you almost
it-
always have an undead in the bottom 3 of your deck.
It
almost
can't
always.
hit minions, which Glavebound Adept could do, but still.
Yes, it also wasn't printed at 7/4. 7.
Oh my god.
It was a 5 mana 7/4 that did 4 damage.
And
And we did.
Demon
And we
Hunter
barely
was
noticed
so
because
weird on
Relic
launch.
Gul'dan cost 5.
It's yeah, we didn't have room for Warglaze of Azeroth. It wasn't good enough in that deck because we had to play 5 mana Pyroblast. Yeah. Anyways. Okay, but the Shadow Priest deck, I think is competitive now, and I think will be very competitive after any balance changes. It is good. It puts out a lot of damage. I think Tonberry did good work, and with the Haunting Nightmare change, that card does get better. I still don't know if we have room for the second copy, but it's a nice card. It's pretty solid. There is a Youth's Quest Priest list, which is I think is the one that you were playing, Steve.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're seeing a ton of shamans, it can get there. You still do need to draw the things that deal with their boards when you get them. And shaman can make a lot of boards. So, if you don't have the right answer at the right time, you're just going to lose. Or if you're playing poorly and play the wrong 5-cost card occasionally, like I did tonight on stream once or twice, then that's not great either.
Did you Blood Boil instead of Corpse Explosion? That feels like the one that would kill you.
I played a Spirit Guide instead of Clean the Scene. That didn't work out so well.
Oh, right. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Wrong class.
But it does run the new card Cannibalize, which is the 4 mana spell, destroy a minion, restore its health to all friendly characters. Against Shaman, when they often have minions that have significantly high health, that can undo a lot of damage. I don't know how good that's going to be once they take the edges off of Shaman, but when the most popular deck in the meta is routinely summoning minions with minimum 8 health, then that does a lot of work. Generally, it's if you're playing against anything else, like if you're playing against Demon Hunter, it's terrible. Not Demon Hunter, it's Death Knight. It's awful because like you're gonna kill you're gonna kill like a Construct Quarter minion that's traded into something. You're gonna get like 2 health back. Who cares? But when you're dealing with like a gigantic minion that's come out on turn 3 and then you can do that on turn 4, it's pretty good. And otherwise you're just kind of doing Quest Priest things, and you have, you can beat the other control decks that are trying to also target Shaman because you have a win condition and they don't. And you don't really need that win condition against a lot of the aggressive decks. So
I object to that.
okay, noted.
My Blood DK still has Mograine and also
Mograine's not fast enough. You heal a lot in this deck. Because you're
for
running
the Quest Priest matchup, probably not. Like for the Quest Priest matchup, probably not. But for other matchups, Mograine's usually good enough. And I don't think that Blood DK is really ever beating Quest Priest.
Yeah, I mean, and you still have Theatar and Mutinous to try to disrupt some of the combos, though. I mean, if we were seeing more, more Rivendares and more of the weird Thaddeus, OTK stuff, then you probably want Plague Spreaders, which just doesn't run. But I haven't really felt like you needed them that much against what's in the meta right now.
So
Yeah, Phylactery is the scariest thing.
I generally feel like I have a shot against Quest Priest when I play Blood Decay, but I also don't run Body Baggers.
Mm.
So that, at least in my previous iteration, provided me with Mograine and Alex. And I just play really aggressively, especially with Construct Quarter. And that
you could sometimes get there, and it depends on how fast. It always kind of depends on how fast the priest hits their quest, right? Because like once you get past phase 1, then you get the discover. It kind of ramps up from there. But if you get stuck with like not being able to find like a 2-drop or whatever, then it can take a while.
The trick is being able to apply enough pressure that they can't just focus on completing the quest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's against any control deck, right? Like if you just sit back and let them do what they want to do, then they're going to do what they want to do, and that's not good for you.
So, we have a few more deck lists. Jambray claims Death Rattle Rogue is still good. And I will note, stats might back him up. Donkey's track stats on this deck indicate a 60% win rate in a small sample size. And Jambray made a video about this, if you were interested, where he goes over the changes that were necessary. Most importantly, you can't Sinstone Graveyard anymore, because there's no longer Stealth, which was really, really important for Invincible. And you can't really play Invincible either. So, you have to switch and go to a slightly different build, but it still seems pretty playable. So, he talks about it. We don't have a huge sample on HSR yet, but on Donkey's page, it looks pretty powerful. And I think there might be something here. And there is a video over on Jombray's YouTube. Both him and Baby Bear are making a big content push. It would really help him out if you went and go subscribe to their channels. Same with Luna. I know that a lot of the former pro players are spinning up YouTubes. Definitely worth checking out. And I don't know. I'm curious to see if we can still death rattle people.
Yeah, I did play against Baby Bear playing this today.
How was it?
When I was on Evolve Shaman. Oh, she beat the crap out of me.
Okay.
I mean, I would expect that she would do that anyway, but it seemed to have a lot more. I also didn't know what was happening, so that didn't help. I was expecting that she was trying to do the Turbo OTK, which she was, because she also had posted a list of Priest doing the Thaddeus OTK on like day 2. So I thought that's what she was doing, and she super was not. But I got some decent evolves early, and I actually evolved into a Crixus the Voracious early, and she still managed to get around that and ended up winning that game. I'd play against somebody else who was playing, and I did much better against them. So there might be a player diff there, just saying. But the deck at least the deck when piloted well does have some legs.
Yeah,
I mean, she did get to play multiple Krakatoas against me, which was not bad.
I lost a game to it because I expected that I would be able to clear their board and get there, and I just, because I had Alex and they were at 9, and I needed to make a slightly weaker clear while I was at full health so that I could just squeeze in a point of damage to go for lethal, because after 2 or 3 clears, this was on the Rainbow DK, I was then at a point where that board was going to kill me, and I just couldn't squeeze in the extra damage, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to try this. Curious about it. All right. A few more decks. And there are more decks being experimented with out here. These are the ones that I pulled together. But, you can also just go to twitter.com/funkymonkeys and just see all sorts of stuff. I know he's been playing Arcane Hunter, which he's doing well with, again, usual Funky Monkey disclaimer, but if you want to try some stuff, it's out there. I think there's a lot of creativity to be explored in the format. We do have an Evolved Shaman list in the show notes. It's the Evolved Shaman list. You can, the card you make room for Blazing Transmutation is either Carving Chisel, Wind Chill, or Wild Paw Caverns. Run one of those, run 2 of those and cut the third, and put in Blazing Transmutation, and you'll be fine.
I've also seen more than a couple today running Cold Storage to get extra nulls.
Yeah.
Because you freeze the null and then you evolve it, and now you have another copy in your hand. So I don't know if that's a thing that I saw it enough. I saw it happen enough that it was not just one person who was doing it. So
I have a hilarious Cold Storage story from Tuesday. Someone was playing the Quest Warrior, and they got the reward. And I was playing my goofy Shaman from the other side deck, right? But of course, I won that game with double boat because they played Rakara, and I went Cold Storage, Rakara. Next turn, Cold Storage, Rakara. They stayed maybe one more turn.
Edelweiss, noted double boat enthusiast.
Indeed.
This is not the first time we need to plan an intervention. And no matter what class you are, it's come up for you as a rogue and a shaman.
Yeah. I don't know that we can have an intervention. I'm pretty sure that ship has sailed.
When did it come up for Rogue?
The Kibler game.
No. I was warrior.
Yeah, she was the warrior.
I saved Zola for when I was going to pick up Hook Tusk.
Oh, right.
Right? Because it summons random pirates. And eventually, I rolled Hook Tusk, I played Zola, got Hook Tusk, took the rest of Kibler's deck.
Surprised I didn't remember that. Anyways, so also, Tars has a couple lists here. He has a Murloc Shaman. I'm not going to say what it says on Donkey's site. I refuse. So this is a Murloc Shaman. There are a bunch of different ways to play a Bloodlust Shaman. I can't call this Bloodlust Shaman because it doesn't play Bloodlust. It plays double Shadow Suffusion, double No Fin Can Stop Us because it's just going for lower curve. So there are the lists that do the Kindling Elemental into Frostfin Chomper thing. Kindling Elemental, the 1-mana 1/2 that makes next elemental you play cost 1 less. Frostfin Chomper is the 3-mana 2/3 Murloc Elemental that says if you played an elemental last turn, this makes 3 1/1 tokens. So it forgoes the possibility of doing that on turn 2 to get access to things like Clownfish, Firemancer Flurgle, Bolner, that sort of stuff. And Clownfish is really good with Rotgill. So this list is basically a Murloc Shaman on steroids. It doesn't even play the Scourge Troll, which you could also do. I've had some where you play the Scourge Troll with the Hawkstrata Rancher. This does play Rancher. But really, you're just trying to get No Fin Can Stop a Shadow Suffusion or Rotgill down as quickly as possible and as wide of a board as possible, and then you get them. So a lot of fun to play. Tars also has a big Warlock with Thaddeus and Amorphous Slime to discard either Darkhandra Thyr or Thaddeus or Flesh Behemoth, or if you're feeling ambitious Rivendare War Rider, you usually don't want to discard and get that down early because you want to get down a bigger undead so you can play Infantry Reanimator, which brings back an undead minion and gives it Reborn, which is very, very good with any of the big undeads in your deck, in particular Flesh Behemoth, which goes and gets another undead and summons it when it draws it. It plays Vandar because all of your minions cost 1 million. It has a bunch of removal. It plays Habeas Corpses, which is that 3-mana spell that brings back a minion that's died, give it Rush, and then it dies at end of turn. So you can go get another Flesh Behemoth. All very ambitious. But there might be something here. He had a very, very good record with it in the first day. The stats on HS Replay are a little bit less kind to it, but I do think that it's surprisingly close to being a real deck. I think Habeas Corpse is probably a little bit too optimistic. But
I think that got cut from as the deck was getting refined. But I
Probably
mean,
did.
Tars is also like the European Funky Monkey. So Tars is the originator of the original Big Priest.
He is.
So
Yeah. Reasonable comparison. Something like that. Yeah, or he's kind of Jambray adjacent in many ways.
yeah, that's fair too.
So, again, I think this is waiting for nerfs. However, it does play double Twisted Tether, which is 4 mana destroy a minion and add its stats to a minion in your hand. Very good against a turn 3 Thaddeus. You get to add 11/11 to something in your hand while killing it. So, And then we did find a warrior deck. It is Language Hacker's Quest Warrior. Note that this is under 50% win rate, but it is very fast, and the new Pirate Hookfist 3000, 3 mana 4/3, where after you attack, you gain 4 armor and draw a card. That card's good. That's really good. You can gain a lot of armor with this deck. A lot. You get Rokara going, you get Cargo Guards down, you attack with multiple Hook Fists. It can get there. So we have a lot of options. There are a lot of options you can do in Standard. It is a warped meta, but Evolved Shaman not as popular as the win rate would indicate because people are just kind of not clicking with it as much. We do expect, so when are balance changes? Okay. Big question. This is a big question. So the typical window for a balance change would be this upcoming Thursday or the following Tuesday. So that'd be Thursday the 23rd or Tuesday the 28th, because it is 9 to 14 days after a balance patch. There are some mitigating factors. One, Monday is an American holiday, so it might be a Friday patch instead of a Thursday. Depends on how big of a patch they want and if they want to do a Friday patch. Two, the morale of QA is shot to hell, so I don't know how much work they're going to be doing or if they're going to be able to be quite as efficient with all that's gone down at Blizzard lately, and I don't blame them. However, it is theoretically a smaller patch. Goldshire Knoll and Construct Quarter seem to be the two cards that really stand out. If they don't need to do more than that, they might still be able to get a small patch shipped next week. And I do think that this situation calls for moving faster than slower, just because the best deck is not a play pattern you really want in the format at this prevalence. It's not the story you want this mini set to be about, and they don't have a ton of time before pre-orders start for the large expansion that will bring rotation. Because that set, whatever that is, probably comes out in 6 weeks. 6 weeks till rotation and a new standard. Which is pretty
Crazy.
soon, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to feel like a long time once we're like really pining for it in a few weeks, but yeah, pretty soon for such a big thing. And then we will have the biggest 4-set meta we've ever had before, which will be interesting. I'm curious how different it will be.
Yeah, I mean,
and yeah, we get core set changes, and that was a big deal last year. So
yeah, it's we will have the biggest format, but also like Demon Hunter Ashes of Outland was the biggest format before, because like you can't add a class and have the format get smaller. So like just in terms of sheer card pool, it's because they added another class. But I am curious about how this next 4-set meta looks.
I'm not even talking about that. It's just like the first full year of every set has a mini set, right?
It would be the same as Voyage, right? Because it was 4 sets that all had mini sets.
yeah,
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
yeah, because
Yeah,
Barons and all those sets
more
had
has
mini
passed than
sets.
I realized.
Yeah. So the first mini
This is
set
the
was
biggest.
Dark Moon
This is
Races.
the biggest that standard's ever been.
Yeah, because they
Like,
added
right
a class,
now,
right?
yeah.
But in
Well,
terms
because
of
they added a class, but this is also the first
This
6-set meta where every set had a mini set.
Yeah.
right now, yes, right now,
Yes.
yep.
Yeah.
Right now.
But every format this year, there has been an associated mini set for every set. Just this is the first 6-set, 6 mini set meta. Plus Path of Arthas, which is also just like a weird thing. Though Path of Arthas will make the format line up again because it's just meant to match the first 2 mini sets that DK didn't get.
Right.
Because it's 26 cards, which is 2 mini sets worth, 13 and 13.
Right.
So I'm curious about it. Curious to see where we land. It'll be different, and I would guess how did this happen is a question that's come up in a lot of Discords. Because let's be honest, seeing that Blazing Transmutation and Thaddeus together on the spoiler was not hard to figure out that would be powerful for Shaman. It was not hard to see that. Everyone saw that coming, and I think it's fair to say, with how powerful it is right now, that this should have been a little different. Not even, and we haven't seen the Neptulon bug fix bear out, but I'm guessing that seeing Thaddeus more often on turn 2 is not going to make this format much better. It's better for single target removal, maybe, but I'm still not thrilled about it. But in a team that has not really gotten the talent infusion that it's needed when they're testing a new core set and a new format post-rotation, and they miss something in this small 2-month period, I don't like it, but I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Don't
And-
like
and-
it, but it's not hard to see how it happened.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you could even argue, like, should they have made it? But I mean, like, Evolve Shaman is something that is a deck that a lot of people who are like, let me take a step back. Like, when they're designing cards, they're not just designing for the competitive community, right? They're designing for a much larger player base, and some of those players are just casual, or they're just, they're just playing for fun, and they're not playing optimized decks. And like, Evolve Shaman is something that is, a lot of fun for a lot of people, especially at those levels. So I don't fault them for giving it more support. I get worried when some of those tier fun decks get pushed to the point where they're competitively viable. But it's also, it's sometimes it's hard to see where that line is, right? And Evolve Shaman hasn't really gotten there, and it may have felt like it was safe. And then, it just kind of gets to the point where could it have waited until after rotation when Null went out? Yeah, probably. But maybe there was the idea that, okay, well, this isn't going to be that bad for this long. If it's, it's going to be rotating out anyway, give it a last hurrah. They very often will push decks that haven't really gotten there right before a key component's about to rotate out. This is a little bit beyond the pale, I think, but I think you could see that thought process. And if they didn't, again, if they are under-resourced in playtesting and didn't get there, it's a lot easier for millions of people to break a deck on day one than it is for a small playtesting group.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like fourth deck choices for THL, I feel like a fair number of us were already picking Shaman. Like it was all right, and so that's why it feels so rough to then get pushed over the edge. I think what's more concerning to me is that okay, Null is rotating, but the location and Convincing Disguise and now Blazing, that is 6 evolve effects that are not going anywhere.
It's definitely a design space issue. Yeah.
Well,
So
Tiny Toys is leaving, Nola's leaving. Both very important.
yes, and
So
I
what
think
are
that's
you
a
targeting?
big deal.
And Primordial Wave is leaving too, right?
No.
No,
Or
That's in
still there?
Voyage.
Okay.
Yep.
That was. Oh, yeah. Okay.
My point is not that it's going to be a problem, in the 4 set. Maybe there's nothing then, but it's kind of this ticking time bomb that as soon as there is something, if they make something that cheats meta a little bit too much in the same way that Null does, then immediately we could have the same issues. And I feel like they will want to have a Tiny Toys or something equivalent to that you can do this in some kind of way, right? The question is just whether there's going to be a too much too quickly effect. What's kind of tragic to me is that Blazing Transmutation's coolest feature is something that people no way in heck are going to be doing right now. And the fact is you can target enemy minions. So
I've done that. Yeah.
there's this added element that Evolve Shaman has where between the devolve on Primordial Wave and Blazing Transmutation, you can be good against something like a Rivendare deck because you have all these tools to transform either the first one or their last one to make sure that they can't pull off the combo.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if we get to the point where we get like a Battle Cry deck where with Evolve effects to take like, the understated Battle Cry minions and make them into something usable, I think that's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've had that in Standard before. It's not the best thing to do, but it's occasionally viable, and that's a reasonable deck. And I think that something like a Blazing Transmutation makes a lot of sense in a deck
We
like
had
that.
that.
I think that
We had that this year in Voyage, right before they printed Muck Pools.
right.
We had Schooling, and you could do just Convincing Disguise, and that was kind of the play. And it's the dream that they had, which is the dream we're moving towards, is Baroness Vosh Evolve, where you make a bunch of 5s, and that's your thing. Like you're turn 6 or turn 7, you make a bunch of 5s. It's like a Doppelgangster Evolve sort of thing, and like that's the power level that you aim for. It reminds me of Mogu Mutate without Desert Terror Evolve, of just Mogu Mutate, spiky, right? But it's one thing one time. Or a bunch of mid-sized stuff, and like it's whatever. But that's not what we have right now.
Right. And Null, and they keep printing 10 mana cards that are extremely powerful. So that's also there. I mean, the pool of those 10 mana cards will change, but we know which ones are going to be left behind, and those are still pretty spooky if they do that again. But hopefully they'll take it easy on the Null type effects until all these Evolve effects rotate out, hopefully. But it is a design space issue for sure.
Yeah, but part of the reason why we keep seeing it, this is also the question, why do we keep seeing Evolve? Because it's popular, because people like it. Just like with Thief Rogue, just like with Quest Mage, whatever deck that you think, listener, whatever deck that you've thought to yourself, why do they keep making this? Because it's so scammy and gross. That's why. Evolve Shaman, Thief Rogue, Quest Mage are 3 great examples of decks that saw a ton of play, even when they weren't good, because people love what they do. Also, like most Res Priest decks in history. anytime Convincing Infiltrator has been in a deck for the vast majority of Hearthstone's history, it has been the wrong idea to play that deck if you want to win more games. But people just like what it does. So it's popular. And if Baroness Foch Evolve is at a 50.1% win rate in the next 4-set format, fine. Make your 5s. Live your life. It's okay. But it's not what we have right now. And what we have right now is too far over the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my argument about Thief Rogue too. Like, I understand why Thief Rogue needs to exist because people really like it and they get to play with cards that they don't normally get to play with. Just, it's been pushed to the point where it's competitively viable, and that's when it starts to feel bad when you're basically playing when it feels like you're playing a Tavern Brawl on ladder. That's when that can be kind of a problem, especially when it's been more popular than it is now. I know I'm getting on my soapbox again. I will stop. But, but that's like those types of things. Like I'm completely cool with those types of things, or like the Ramesh, Vast Wisdom deck in Mage that fizzled out very quickly. Good. I'm glad that exists. I'm glad that people can play Casino Mage as long as that doesn't approach competitive viability and we end up with Deck of Lunacy, right? Like that's kind of the line there.
Yeah. And the issue with those decks is always when they become too consistent. The goal is for them to be highly variable, which is why Yogg pre-nerf versus Yogg post-nerf were so dramatically different, because when you made Yogg have a very clear fail state, you made him unreliable, as opposed to when he was 10 mana Doom. Right? It was always kill every minion and draw a bunch of cards. That was always what the card was. And that was too consistent. So when these highly variant decks, which exist for the purpose of creating highly variant game states, start to edge towards consistency, like we have right now, that's where you have the problem. And that's why we need to introduce more variability.
Right. And that's the problem with Null specifically, is because the pool of 10 cost minions is always going to be small because they don't print a lot of them.
Also, it doesn't cost enough mana to get a 10 drop and play. That's my main issue with it. The last time we had this problem was called Mogu Flesh Shaper, and that card wasn't okay either, as it turns out. It also had Rush.
It solves two problems with the Wild Paw Null if you make it cost 11, because
Goldshire. Wrong mana cheating Null that worked the format.
You can make,
Sorry.
But go ahead and make Wild Paw Null cost 11 too. That's fine.
It can't hurt you anymore. It's dead. Card is dead.
With Goldshire Null goes to 11, then it also means that if you use Convincing Disguise, it's always going to be another Null, because currently there is no 11 or 12 to evolve into.
There is a 12.
Right?
There's not. There's a 13.
Oh, there's a 13.
Giant's at
right.
13.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a 12. Yeah. So
when there's nothing to hit, it regresses to 10s. But when there is something to hit, then you hit that.
Right. So if there are no other 11s, it just turns into itself.
So you have to buff Azul Giant to 11, and then you fix this.
No, you just make Null 11, and then it'll always evolve it into itself.
But if you buff Azul Giant to 11, it always turns into an 8/8 every single time.
That's true.
Would give Token Demon Hunter would make that deck better. You know what? The more I talk about this,
we have been recording way too long.
Hold on a sec. I want you to think about this, okay? If Azul Giant cost 11, you solve this problem, give a consistent that is not a game-ending board state, it's just an 8/8, even on turn 2, it's just an 8/8, and you make a really crappy Demon Hunter archetype playable. I don't know.
With Blazing, would it only show you one option? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, there's only one thing in the bag.
Yeah? Huh. It's roundabout, but I kind of dig it.
Okay.
They would still have to give a refund for Wild
Congratulations.
for Null, Goldshire Null.
Okay.
Make Wild Paw Null 11 too. That's fine. Then it could go into a 3/5 rush.
Azul Giant.
I mean, I
Okay,
guess
okay.
it would, yeah. Yeah.
Title of the episode: Buff or Zool Giant. I'm writing that down. This is my platform now. We have a holiday weekend. Don't think they've confirmed any changes yet. I'm gonna use my influence
Hey,
to
send the
fight.
tweet.
Your giant influence.
See? I'm going to do this for Draco Cat. I'm doing this for him. All right. So, we have very clearly been recording too long. Because that is the second obscure card reference I've made this episode, which means it's time to go.
Oh,
So, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coincasy.com. You can find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coincasy. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coincasy.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coincasy.com, right into our email at coincasy@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coincasy. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coincasy. Like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coincasy.com. Big thanks to our producers: Number Theory, Doshi K, Crash Cat, B Squatch, David P, Fade to Black, Wild Lou, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, Lucky, Grumpy Monk, Krebmart, Mart, and the Burger Club. We had some subs and bits. Doge TK, 26 months. Thank you so much, Doge. And Zepho, thank you so much for the bits. Thank you, everyone that followed us today. Okay, Coin Conceits. I have the most, so I'll go first. All right. Binks. I am calling out some Snap creators this week. Binks is a Snap streamer, former Wild Hearthstone player, has a great stream, and made a video today called Why It's Okay That I've Never Been Infinite, which is the Legend equivalent over there. The video was very well made and spoke really clearly to both his intentions as a content creator and also why you as a player don't need to feel obligated to hit infinite and why it's not everyone out there. And this is true for Legend as well. In the old ranked system where we have clear data, 0.6% of all players hit Legend. Under 1%. But the divide was always Legend or not Legend, because if you are in a Hearthstone Discord or listening to this podcast, you are disproportionately engaged because casual players do not leave the client. They do what's in the client. They do not leave the client. So, it's not Legend or not Legend. Everyone has their own space. If you have ever hit Diamond, you are in the top, 15% or more of Hearthstone players. I forget the exact rank ranges, but very good video. Strongly recommended. Link in the show notes, which are dense with links this week. Kawa, who is running the Marvel Snap New York tournament tomorrow. I unfortunately can't make it there to hang out and see people, but hope you have a great time, everybody. Amelia, she's a friend of mine that works for Blizzard. She is the head of PR for executive communications from the Office of the CEO right now. So, Amelia, I am rooting for you. Good luck this week. I think you're great, and I'm sorry that things are stressful right now. The Mana Rising podcast, it hasn't gone up yet because they do full videos, and I uploaded a 150 gig video file to them and said, have fun editing. But I was on that podcast this past week. We recorded already. It was a really fun episode. They just interviewed me. And so if you want an hour-long interview with me, keep an eye on the Hype Horizon channel on YouTube. It'll be over there. I'll link it when it goes up. Rawrang in the CoinCC Discord, just had a good connection with them this week. I wanted to shout them out. Alkali and Mrs. Tech. That's Deck Tech's wife, Mrs. Tech. Deck is his first name and Tech is his last name. You know how it goes. So they both gave me advice. I got my wife a plant for her birthday, and I asked them both, how do I make this thing not die? And they both gave me excellent advice, so I passed that along to make sure that thing didn't die. Donkey, because I asked him today when I was compiling all the deck lists for the show, hey, I'm tired of just removing and re-adding classes so they're alphabetized. Can you make a class sort button? And he said, okay, and 20 minutes later it was on the website. And so now you can add all your lists into a lineup and click class sort, and it sorts them by class sequence, which is really nice if you're making conquest lineups or if you have a podcast where you share a bunch of deck lists. So Donkey, you're the real MVP. Thank you for that. Forrest Bates, who also sent me a DM the other day, just had a nice conversation with them, and my wife for having her birthday. Okay. Edelweiss, Coin Conceits, let's go.
I just have one because I never remember to keep tabs of. Oh wait, no, I have two because I am remembering because I put it in Notepad this time. To Stiltron, who I ran into on ladder, and I believe they were the one I did the Rukara freezing to. So I'm sorry, but also Coin Concede to you. If I'm misremembering that was the game against you, then it must have been something else ridiculous. There were a lot of things that happened that day. And then also coin concede to Carrington, my new stylist, who I think she did an excellent job. I dyed my hair red again as a treat for getting that second casting gig, way back. Finally got paid. So I think it turned out really well considering we didn't use any bleach, which usually, since I have a dark brown hair color, I have to bleach my hair, which is really not good for your hair. And we managed to get, I think, a pretty vibrant red without bleach. So I'm very happy about that.
Looks good. Listeners, audio listeners, I can't make the sound of vibrancy, but I just want to assure you that it's really there.
You probably could if you tried, but we don't have enough time for that.
It's that's not good for anybody. And Steve, your coin concedes.
Yeah, so I'm going to coin concede to Superior David, who retired mostly from streaming this week. It sounds like he's going to focus more on YouTube. So he's not retiring from content creation, just going away from daily streams. And I think it seemed like it was a pretty emotional, a pretty big thing. I mean, he reassured everyone he's not going away, right? And he's still going to do streams on occasion. But I mean, I spent a lot of time on that channel, and I'm a mod. I guess I still am if he's still going to be streaming eventually, but I am a mod for him. And I hope that this change brings you everything you want. I'll just say that. And he seems like he's really thought it out really well, as he often does. Like, he doesn't really do things willy-nilly. He generally puts a lot of thought into them, and it makes sense why he's doing what he's doing, and I wish him all the best.
Yep. It's a lot of people are really hitting the YouTube pretty hard, and I think that makes sense because it is also by far the most lucrative outlet of content, and also by far the most time consuming. So, people are following the example of some really big names in the scene, Regis, Rarin, Zeddy. They have all really blown up with the focus on the YouTube. It works, and so they're working it. So
yeah, and he did a he just put up a video that was a retrospective on Mercenaries, featuring some clips from an interview that you may have heard on this podcast. That was really good, and I think he wants more time to be able to do content like that, which is hard to do when you're spending 6 hours a day streaming. So makes perfect sense.
Yep. I hope his views go up. I'm subscribing right now. I just did it. So I think that's gonna do it for our show, which turned out to be giant size. So keep calm and buffer, Zool Giant. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All right.
Ooh, that is a lot. Yeah.
I'm not thinking about it.
220.
Hey, you know what? We managed to avoid most editing disasters this week, at least.
It's still gonna be a little rough.
Mostly.
We've had worse episodes for Edelweiss, but it won't be like 2 weeks ago where it was an hour and a half to edit the whole thing.
Yeah,
Right.
that was divine.
Unusual and the dream.
I don't think I can finish this one before bed tonight. So
I wouldn't ask you to.
I would be concerned if you did.
Yes.
I'm getting
well,
faster. Not
please
that
don't.
fast.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Please get some rest.
When is the last time we had a dev on here? I feel like we had one.
That was Nathria launch, I think.
Who'd we have?
Cora and Leo.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Where I said Abyssal Depths was the best card reveal we've had in a while, and Corey made that face.
Yeah. Yes.
Loved that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask around.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, we're going to go check in with our families to let them know that we're alive. But thank you all for being here. And we'll see you. Should be next week at the normal time. Should be normal time. We'll see. But should be. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.